Hey, Andrew.
Yes, Steven?
You know how we romanticize the days of going out to our local video store and sifting through endless amounts of movies, searching for our favorite films, and maybe even finding some hidden gems?
Oh, yes, I know it all too well. That used to be my favorite thing to do. Unfortunately, everything is online now.
Well, what if I told you that there was a place online where you could get some of them same thrills as going to the video store?
Are you talking about Orbit DVD?
I knew you knew what I was talking about. Orbit DVD is located in Asheville, North Carolina, and online with OrbitDVD.com, they bring you everything your physical media heart desires.
Yeah, they have an awesome website that stays up to date with the latest releases from all of your favorite boutique labels as well as studio releases. Not only do they carry American labels such as Criterion Collection, Severin Films, Vinegar Syndrome, and Warner Archive, but they get routine shipments on imports from companies such as 88 Films, Arrow Video, Imprint, and so much more.
And with the option to sell or trade your used copies for cash or store credit, they really bring that video store vibe to you. So go to OrbitDVD.com and stock up on your Blu-rays.
And tell them Chasing Labels sent you.
Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I'm your host, Stephen Billings, and with me, as always, is my Fu Manchu, as I call him, co-host, Andrew Krubal. How you doing, man?
Doing good. See, I never know if that's...
Now, it's not a downplay. I'm not just picking on your facial hair, but I'm calling you Christopher Lee. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
Which I was just gonna say. I don't know if it's a compliment or not a compliment, but either way, I'm being compared to a legend. So
Oh yeah, there you. And I
can't
know
really
you.
gotta
Of
take
course,
the compliments
he's
when
in
you can
Lord of
get
the
'em.
Rings too. So I mean,
That's very true. I mean,
you like that too.
I was thinking of Lord of the Rings just now as we're talking. See, it's always
Aren't
on
you
my
always
mind.
Aren't you always thinking of Lord of the Rings?
Very much so. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
actually just listening to J.R.R. Tolkien doing a narration of reading from Lord of the Rings
Yeah,
over a clip from the movie,
yeah.
and someone kind of edited it together, and I was like, that's a very interesting kind of clip. It was the Battle of Pelennor Fields when Rohan shows up and
Ah,
they're on top of the hill looking down upon the battlefield,
yeah.
and there's a specific passage from the book that I quite remember very vividly as a young person reading that for the first time and how powerful it was.
Yeah.
So that was kind of just a regular random happenstance that I found on TikTok, or I think it was Instagram. But either way, it's there. So you're right in the Christopher Lee connection there.
I am.
But we are back once again for spine number 96. Oh man, we've been doing this for a very long time, seemingly, Steven.
It's I don't even know. I don't even want to talk. Let's not talk about time. We always talk about time at the beginning of the
We
show.
do talk about time, but I do want to specifically mention that it is being not the 96th episode, we are coming closer to the 100 episode extravaganza that Steven has planned out, I think.
Kind of.
But
Yeah.
our guest that we have here today was actually a
Our
guest
first guest.
we had on, I was gonna say our first guest ever
Wow.
on episode 4, spine number 4, I think. It
Yeah.
was that long ago.
Wow, I had no
Yeah,
idea.
that long ago. Yeah, you were our first. Yeah, well, I back then I think you might have remembered that you were our first guest, but it's been so long now. It's been like 2 years, over 2 years. If you don't know that he was our first guest, we have from the Criterion Now podcast, Aaron West. How you
Hey
doing?
guys. Wow, it's great to be back. I probably did know at some point that I was your first guest. And what's funny, Stephen, is remember I asked, hey, was my show the first time you were on a podcast? And it was. So there's a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
firsts. But yeah, I've been very, very proud of you guys watching for the last, I guess, 92 episodes. Or yeah, 92, yeah. And and also I love the awards show. Stephen,
Oh,
I
thank
saw
you.
you put some of my jokes on the screen, so I felt very, very validated. So thank you for that.
Oh no, yeah. The thing is when it comes to the YouTube community, it's not a community I'm very familiar with all the faces and in this the names. And when I saw somebody I knew, I was like, so yeah, I was like, I got to highlight that. And I was like, and it was a funny joke. You made a joke about discs that, I'll just let you guys go and find that joke
Oh,
near the
yeah,
beginning of
it
the
was the
show.
disc measuring contest. Okay.
It's a disc measuring
Yeah, okay,
contest.
I was pretty
Yes.
proud of that one,
Yeah.
so thank
Oh, what
Yeah.
a
That was
funny
a good one.
euphemism.
That was a good one. But yeah, I appreciate you being in the chat for that. That was a labor of love, and hopefully we'll be bringing that back this coming year. We haven't honestly started working on it yet, but I think me and Ryan both need a
Mhm.
a break from thinking about it, and then probably sometime here in the next couple months we'll probably start planning it. It needs to be planned a little, as much in advance as possible. So,
Yeah, it looked like a
but
lot of work, so I felt your pain, but, I think in the end, it was, certainly worth it, at least for us, so thanks for doing
oh,
that,
good,
Steven.
good. That's what we want. But please tell everybody maybe that hasn't if nobody saw our first episode with you or has never discovered the Criterion Now podcast or any other things that go over there at the Criterion Cast. Please tell people about what you've been doing in the podcasting space.
Well, a long time ago, my mother gave birth to Cinefano. It actually really has. You mentioned talking about time, but it's been a very very long time that I've been doing this. So it started as a blog. I was just writing about Criterion's, and well, actually, it's kind of interesting. My wife won Jeopardy. I think probably not a lot of your listeners know. And on the flight home, and it wasn't like a tremendous amount, but it was still a big deal. And I always loved Criterion, but it's not easy to just go. And at that point, it was 2014, so that I probably had like 800 discs to buy or something. I'm just guessing. And in the airport, I was like, "Hey, can I buy the Criterion collection, like the entire thing?" And she said, "Okay." So for years, I just got Criterions and Criterions, and I eventually got caught up. And I was blogging, then started a show, and the show did pretty well, I think. And then a couple years ago, we brought on Jill Blake from formerly TCM and Filmstruck, um, very presently on Twitter. She can put out some fire, but she's great, and we've been friends for many many years. So I just said, hey, I need a little kind of like you guys. You need a little rapport. You can't just do it by yourself.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of times that rapport is what makes a show. So I think you certainly have it, and I feel like I
thank you.
have it with Jill. And so
Yeah,
yeah, but of course, unfortunately, we had to go on hiatus for a short period last year, and we're actually on an accidental hiatus now, just because family stuff, health stuff, travel. So I think we'll probably get back going in about maybe in a month or so after we both get back from our
yeah,
trips. But yeah, looking forward to it. I love discs. I love movies. I have piles of them all over the house at the moment, waiting to be
yeah,
watched. So that's why I do this.
yeah. Your cat gets into them sometimes. I notice,
Oh,
which is always anytime I see that happen, I'm just like, oh,
we have a cat from
he's rude.
hell, and he lived in our Criterion room for a year because he was just too crazy to be out in Gen Pop, as we call it. And he
Yeah.
destroyed my Cassavetes set because he's a massive cat and he has big claws. He
Ah,
destroyed my Citizen Kane. He destroyed The Man Who Fell to Earth, so the out of print Criterion. So yeah, thanks, cat. But yeah, maybe I'll just ask John Mulvaney for some replacement cases.
yeah, yeah. He'll be all about that. Um, but yeah, man. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, back to what you were talking about podcasting with a partner. It's I do think you guys have a great rapport, and I do think it's essential. I just honestly I wouldn't want to do it by myself.
Hmm.
Not even just for the listener's sake, but for my sake. Like I don't. It's hard to stay motivated. I think Andrew said this for himself a lot of times. It's hard to stay motivated when it's just
Hmm.
you. You need to kind of hang on your co-host to help keep you going, and honestly, it's better to talk movies with other people. And I could have a guest on all the time, but you just never know what you're going to get when you're talking to people maybe that you don't know as well. And when you have somebody that you know very well and you can talk movies with them and you can kind of poke fun at each other sometimes, you can kind of give each other a hard time. It can be a more enjoyable experience for people to listen in on friends talking about movies than strangers talking about movies. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's I think it's key. I think some people can do a good job talking stuff by themselves, but um, I don't know. I just want to. I just like having a friend to talk with. So
Yeah.
that's the best way for
Even,
me. Yeah.
Especially in podcast form,
mhm.
I think. You know what I mean? The audio form specifically, I think that goes well because it always feels like odd when you're recording video, it feels odd doing it by yourself, you know. But recording audio, I think, would feel even odder because you don't even have like the picture of yourself to bounce off of. You're just bouncing off of the sound of
You're
your
just
own
talking
voice.
into a computer screen. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just talking into waves, I guess.
Yeah.
And it is really tough to keep motivated in general, just in life in general. But even when it is like a passionate project, to keep that passion going, to keep that passion brewing. Luckily for us, the way we've kind of been able to keep things going is um the
Mhm.
news never stops nowadays. You know what I mean? So it's like you're constantly trying to keep up because you have to keep up or else you get swamped. So it's like a natural like thing that keep pushing you forward, pushing you forward. I mean, so it just you know, it's very fascinating how that works. You kind of have to find things to keep you going, and sometimes things just keep you going without you even realizing it.
And because I schedule an interview like all the time,
That is
it
also
doesn't I
true.
don't allow us to not be
That's
doing
cool.
something.
Steven,
Yeah.
yeah, Steven's the great
That's
scheduler. I
it's
couldn't
hard.
do
It's hard.
that.
I
My
can
mind couldn't
vouch.
do it.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. And I also had Mark Herney. I don't know if you've had him on the show before, but
Yeah. I haven't had him on the show yet.
he
I'd love
probably love
to
to
though.
do
I
it.
love
So
Mark.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a great friend, but he just didn't have
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
time anymore. So
Yeah. Yeah. Does he still do the box set
um,
show? Doesn't
he
he do the
does
box set show?
the box set. That's David and Trevor inside the box. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking right.
Right, right.
That's David
Mark does
Blakesley. Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
he does,
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry.
occasionally he'll go on, what's called first time watchers. I think he still does this. He was actually doing this before
Yeah.
we podcasted together. So it's been a while. And he would do like a Criterion
Yeah.
minute
Yeah.
kind of thing. Just kind of summarize. But
Yeah.
yeah, obviously we were a little more than a minute on our show. So yeah, with him it's probably 5 years or
Yeah.
so.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was a great supporter of my Criterion song. I always remember him. Him loving the song.
You
Especially the
know,
part when I said,
I was
when,
thinking about that song last night. Don't ask me why.
really? Wow, that's weird.
I
Um,
tell you, in the wee hours of the morning when you're just delirious watching movies, and you're like, "What's going on?" It's like, "Oh yeah, Steven made a Criterion song one time." Because I know I saw a post on Ernst Lubitsch. Someone was watching an Ernst Lubitsch movie. I think when I was scrolling through Twitter, I'm like, "Did Steven drop Ernst Lubitsch in his song? Maybe I don't
I,
remember."
I, no, it wasn't Lubitsch. I think you're thinking of Dietrich and von Sternberg. I think I might have referenced in
Oh,
the
okay,
song,
yeah.
maybe. But it's one, that doing boutique label songs is a thing on my list of things I would love to continue to do. Like make an album of like just tons of like just maybe like 10 songs that cover different things about collecting and boutique labels, and do an album. And I don't know what I'd call it yet, but I would like to do that still. It's just something I just haven't gotten around to. Maybe on a vacation one of these I'll just drop something really quick. Now don't think about it too
Could be
much and then just put it out.
Billings chasing
Um,
labels, the album.
I see that's so simple. You're making it seem so easy.
Well, you could work it into the
Yeah.
show. I
I
mean,
could, but no,
then you
I'll
could
get to
sell
it.
it. You could sell it,
I could.
make money.
You guys,
I
you're
love it.
making it sound like I could do something really good, and we don't know if it. That was one good
It
song.
was a fun it
People
was a
pay for
fun song. People
everything
love that
and
song too,
anything.
Stephen.
I'm glad people liked it because it was I had a fun time doing it, and your show was an inspiration for it, definitely because um a lot of the references I make were things that came from your show and your audience, specifically of course not saying the word hall, which was a reference that was strictly from your community, where I can't remember who it was, but they said, why do people say hall? Why, halls, like I hate hearing the word, using the term hall, a hall video. And it's like, so then I use that as a reference in my song. But yeah, that was a fun thing. And I like to do it again.
Well, July's
And
almost
yeah,
here,
so
Stephen. So
um,
you could do it. Well, if they
I
have a
could do a
sale,
part two.
I'm not
Could,
certain yet. So we'll see.
oh no, don't tell me that.
We
Don't tell
say
me
that
that.
we've been saying that I think for at least the last 4 5 years. And then they always happens, but
Well,
you do
they
never
kind of.
know. I mean,
Oh, sorry.
only I yeah, I
Go
was just
ahead.
saying, I just only one Barnes and Noble is still left in my area that still sells movies, so that's a thing for me now, where it's just like finding a Barnes and Noble is not necessarily the issue. It's finding one that actually still sells movies is the issue, and mine's been shrinking and shrinking as the years have gone on. Unfortunately, that seems to be the case with all movies in brick and mortar stores. Barnes and Noble not exclusive to
Yeah, well,
that.
I don't want to put fear in the hearts of your listeners, but one thing is, and I think it's been a little while, and this guy does not really like discounts. You know, he likes making things luxurious. So the other sales have been cut, so I'm hoping it won't, but you never know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they know the significance of that sale, and that it won't make them think that that's not worth it. Because I think it seems that, and most people, I mean, a lot of people that they don't buy
Hmm.
Criterion's any other time of the year. That's when they go and buy is in July and November. I mean, that's
I'm
um
Or
one of those people. I
yeah.
mean, I kind
So
of load up during those sales. Steve and I had epic legendary
oh, I've
battles
had
of
legendary
buying
battles.
movies
Yeah.
during those sales.
Dude,
Um,
I had some pulls that had to have been
hmm
50 movies one time.
yeah,
50 releases, something. I
in
spent
in a
$1,000
month,
at least
in one
in
month.
a
Well,
month. Yeah,
when I bought the entire
at least.
collection, you know, I only had about 100 then, and so I would get these massive boxes, and I would post. You might remember these, Stephen. I would post haul pics, and I would call them haul pics because it felt like I had broken out of Criterion headquarters with a haul of movies. But yeah, they're fun to get, and
Yeah,
the great thing is I've watched most of them, so now it's all the imprints and indicators and all these other things that we're going to talk about soon that are
yeah,
collecting a little dust. So need to get on the.
yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, is your, obviously you like you're saying now, you love you're into all different types of labels. What is it about Criterion that is still kind of, is it just like a first love thing that you keep going back? They're kind of like the one that you have the most connection with because maybe they hit your film taste the most, or what is it about Criterion that keeps
Good
you going
question.
back?
I think it's a quality product, and I think it does. I have my taste is everything really, and I think that's the same with you guys. But you know,
Sure,
maybe
yeah,
not as I'm not always looking for like a giallo or something. You know, special occasions. So yeah, I just think they do a great job. They have great features. I think they really have a great promotional, you know, mystique about them, especially with like the 15th announcement day. You know, it's always like it feels like a holiday in the middle of the month. But that's the thing is, you know, and in fact,
yeah,
Jill and I have talked about this. You know, we're technically a Criterion show, but I have 3,500 discs, I think by now. I haven't counted. So, and so that those are obviously not all Criterion. I've been buying a lot of Imprint lately, and have a lot of Indicator, a lot of Arrows.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's for me. It's and in fact, I thought about this because I sold a couple not long ago. I just was like, okay, I'm not probably not going to watch these again. These are one timers, and so I sold some just to get them out of the house.
yeah,
And I realized I'm not really a collector. Like I buy the movies to watch the movies, and unless I know
sure,
it's one of my favorite movies, and I'm gonna watch it 10 times more in my life. Dazed and Confused is a good example. I got that 4K, put it right in the player, and it was a great time. All right. And but yeah, not everyone. So yeah, I just like the label.
yeah. Yeah. When it comes to, yeah, we've talked about it tons on here. People collect in different ways. People, you know, they buy these things for different reasons. And we're always promoting the watching of. It's all
Mhm.
about the movies, guys. I mean, it's always about discovering something new, and yeah. I mean, I think sometimes you have to. I've even been doing it myself lately, just thinking. I mean, if I can find the time, kind of going through my films and kind of deciding if something's really needs to still be here because as much as I got a decent amount of shelf space still kind of left, like I need to start, parsing out some stuff. Like it's not, some of the stuff was impulse buys, some of it, I didn't like the
Mhm.
movie. I got some stuff in all over my collection where I've bought movies and I've blind bought them and ended up not liking the movie that much, but I still have them. So I need to weed out some of them. And yeah, you got to make, um, you don't want to just start collecting. You don't want to start hoarding. You want to be about, there needs to be a certain level of curation that you got to do for yourself, not to impress people. You don't need to, numbers are nice. Having a large collection is impressive, but it's not.
Don't take this away from me, Stephen. Let me show off my stuff. What's interesting is that you're right. Over time, I think you start
Yeah.
tailoring your collection more and more to the way you want it to be specifically for you. I mean, and people are into all kinds of different stuff. I've seen people who have collections just specifically of a certain
Mhm.
genre, just action movies, just horror movies, some comedies. Some people just buy specifically from one label, and that's about it. It's very interesting how like that works. For me, it's also kind of like I like to have a bit of everything, like a bit of a
Mhm.
renaissance person, I guess. I guess it's kind of how I structure my life, being a bit of a renaissance man. Know a little bit about a lot so that you're never not out of a conversation, you know?
Yeah.
I may not be a like I may not be a diehard Giallo fan. Like I may not know everything about Giallo, but I do have some of the movies. I do have a sense of reference points. I do know generally what you're talking about, so I'm not completely lost in conversation with people. That's kind of the way I kind of structure my life in general. But I understand what Steven's saying. But I'm one of those people. It's hard to part with stuff. I've got stacks and stacks of old DVDs that I've since upgraded from. That have gone from DVD to Blu-ray to other Blu-ray editions to now into 4Ks, and I still have those original DVDs. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what do I do with these? You know what I mean? Over time, unfortunately, the value of
Well,
these things have plummeted down to nothing
I mean, I
other
was
than
gonna say, I think,
sentimental.
I think for you is you want to you want to get something back for it, but at this point,
There's
you don't.
nothing to get
You're
back for
probably
it.
not going to get
You're
anything
better off
back
just
for it.
keeping it, collecting dust, you know,
Better off just sending it
Mhm.
to your local library, maybe, or
or
something.
something like
You
that.
know.
And then I'm also one of the people who gets incredibly frustrated as when we upgrade from a DVD or a Blu-ray to whatever other edition, and there's like one missing
Mhm.
special feature, just like one ridiculous thing that doesn't matter. It could be a photo gallery. It could be remember early Blu-rays, they had those interactive things on there that they kind of got rid of them over time, where it would be like an interactive video game that you had to connect to the internet for or something ridiculous like that. They got rid of those over time. So those some of those early Blu-rays are now like unique relics of when they were just trying stuff out and for the format. They're trying to sell people the formats. I always find those promo videos really funny in the beginning of old Blu-rays where just like it was brand new disc format where you can do all this kind of stuff like the director picture-in-picture commentary on select scenes, things like that, or they would have like trivia on as one of the bonus features, and it's like it's such interesting, unique stuff.
Sounds like you're just coming up with reasons not to get rid of stuff. Um,
Thank you, Stephen.
yeah,
Thank you for exposing me
I'm
and
just,
exposing my
we're
sentiments.
all about honesties here, So,
Steven is
uh,
brutally honest.
I am brutally.
Jeez.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. We're friends. It's okay to
Mm,
give shit to each other.
Well,
mm.
having
But
having sold a whole
yeah,
bunch, you're not. I'm not surprised. I mean, it's really hard to, and surprisingly, that sometimes people will just not be interested in something, or will offer like
yeah,
$5 for it, and it's like, okay, is this worth me going to the
yeah,
post office? But yeah, so that's,
yeah. Well, that's what's tough for me is like I want to sell some stuff, but it's like getting the attention for it, and then also like having the motivation to like take pictures and set up if you're going
hmm
to try to sell it through like a legitimate way other than just posting it in a group or something like that. Like it, I got like 300 movie posters from my time working at a movie theater, and some of them I don't really need
hmm
to keep anymore. Like honestly, I have like most of the first and second phase of Marvel movie posters that people I know will want, and I just don't have the motivation right now to set up. Like I got to take pictures, pull them out, take pictures of them, like do it in a way that's going to make people want to buy it. So, and that's what takes so long.
And
Yeah.
shipping costs too.
And then I gotta, and like you said, just going to the post office feels like a chore. Like I don't, but I got to get rid of some of this stuff eventually because I want to be able to continue to collect and feel like I'm not invading this
Yeah,
whole room.
it's a lot of work.
So,
I'll just say that.
but
So I stopped when I started a new job,
it is.
and yeah, maybe I'll resume someday. But yeah, that's the one thing. If you put something online and you don't ship it in 2 days, you're going to hear about it. Maybe. So you have to honor your
Yeah.
side.
Yep.
But yeah. But anyway, I know that was a little bit of a discussion, but yeah, glad to be back. Thanks for having me after all these years.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah,
congrats.
man. I got a lot of people from the early days of this podcast where we were just in our infancy and getting into a rhythm that I definitely want to bring back to talk again. Jonathan needs to come back.
Yeah.
Jonathan James needs to come back. A few people from the early days that I'd like to bring back just to see where they're at. And just, now that we're in a flow here, we can treat the talks a little differently. But before we get into the recent Blu-ray announcements, we do want to talk about some stuff from last week, because of course, because we have Aaron here from Criterion now, we can't not talk about the recent Criterion releases. We did talk about them last week, but I do want to go over a little bit with Aaron here about his thoughts on some of these releases. Of course, few of the, at least particularly one, is a big deal that it finally got announced. So, Aaron, please, let's start off with the big one, After Hours.
Yeah.
What your thoughts on After Hours finally getting its
Be
announcement?
careful what I say, but I knew it was coming. So
I feel a hot take
I was
incoming.
just
Damn
relieved
it.
that I could talk about it because I knew it was coming,
Yeah.
and I didn't know when. I just a lot of times with Criterion, I don't know this because I don't work there, but they kind of have a release window, and sometimes titles can get bumped for whatever reason. It feels like After Hours feels like it took forever,
Yeah.
but
Dude, your polls
yeah,
inside the group, it was always
every
one
time.
that was put in the polls, and every month would always be near the top, and then we never get it. And it was like, finally, it's validated. Finally,
Yeah, it's been years. People have been wanting that for years upon years. I was telling Steven, not when we were talking about it, that for me, for years, my big get um was always
Mm.
La Strada. I always wanted an upgrade from the DVD of La Strada, and it finally happened with the Fellini
This is
Essential
quite an upgrade, yeah.
Collection.
Uh,
Yeah, quite an
yeah,
upgrade
quite
for
enough. Yeah,
because I would always see that old DVD, that big thick 2 disc edition, and it would always be at the store, and it would always be sitting there taunting me. And I was like, "Stop taunting me! Stop looking right at me!"
he does
And
talk to
it,
the Blu-rays.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh man, that's another thing. Yeah, I used to talk
Don't
to
look at me.
myself as if I was talking to the Blu-rays while at Barnes and Noble. That's a different story for a different time.
That's why he's
But
gotten
yeah,
kicked out of all. He says that only one left that has movies, but it's really only one left they'll allow him in.
yeah, probably at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only one that's close enough to where I feel the motivation to drive to it. You know what I mean? The rest are all just too far. You know, I mean, I love it, but I'm not driving an hour to buy a
No.
Criterion.
Yeah.
At
you
that
don't
point,
ha
you can just have it
yeah.
shipped to you.
The money you save is gas money now.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right. But back to
Yeah.
After Hours. Yeah,
Yeah, I
long
saw it when
sought
it came
after.
out, believe it or not, with my dad. He didn't know, so don't blame him. I was a little young then. And the thing is, Scorsese has a great relationship with the Criterion Collection, and I hate to think this way, but Criterion Scorsese's not the youngest guy. We keep on seeing our heroes die, and I'm not predicting Scorsese's death. Now, Marvel fans might have some thoughts on that, but
Yeah, God.
he's a
Yeah,
he's a treasure, and I just great that we're getting all
of course.
uh, his work for the most part. I've been waiting for this one for a while, and it's 4K now too. So last year we would have probably been waiting for the 4K upgrade. Um,
Uh, Yeah. I was glad that it was a 4K. That's what was the biggest surprise. I knew we would eventually probably get it, but the fact that they put it in 4K was like the biggest surprise I think of the release.
mhm.
Well,
So,
yeah, I think it's been so anticipated and so looked forward to that eventually they skipped over a format because it took so long. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's happening with a lot of releases that we've been waiting years upon years for. True Lies,
Mhm.
still to this day, is probably still incredibly sought after,
It's gonna come
and
this year, I think.
that's the rumor. That's
It's
the
yeah,
rumor.
yeah.
I've heard that now for the last few months. I've heard same thing with The Abyss, that they're trying to line it up, I think, for
Mhm.
Avatar, the new Avatar movie, I guess when
Yeah.
that comes out. But I've heard those 2 for years and years, and we were supposed to get Panic Room years
Yeah,
ago.
Panic
It
Room
was
was all
announced.
what was it? I think Kino was gonna put it out, I think,
It
and
was
then it
either
was
them or Sony, and
yeah.
they were gonna do that, and they were going to do a 4K, I think, of the girl with the dragon tattoo, and I can't remember if that ever happened, and we never end up getting Panic Room, and that's the only David Fincher film I can think off the top of my head that doesn't have
And
a Blu-ray
it's not
release
an old film either.
at all.
Yeah, it's in
20 years
feels
2004,
old?
like living
Yeah,
a
something
it's like
recent
20
like
years
memory.
old.
But yeah, no, that's why I always say if you want a disc, buy a disc. You can't expect it to be streaming 20, especially nowadays. So, but now I know a lot of good stuff lately. I actually have kind of a quandary with the Bud Bedecker Randolph Scott item. Now it's 4K, so that's cool. But the
of
Indicator had
course.
that set, and I watched every minute of that set, and I loved it. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at the special features. It's like check, check, check. So do I want to spend $100 on something that is going to be minimally appreciably better? And I'm like, I don't know. So I might not get that one.
Well, that would surprise me. Ain't you a completist
I
on Criterion? Don't you
Mean,
need to
so
get
that's a
this?
great word. Need no, no, I don't. Ask my wife. I don't need it. But I haven't been a completionist with 4K. So, for example, Breathless was announced. I
Okay,
love Breathless, or I shouldn't say I love Breathless. I appreciate
sure.
Breathless quite a bit. Um, and the other day, I just realized that I had pre-ordered the artificial, or not artificial eye, the Curzon Three Colors trilogy, and then the new one just came out.
Yeah,
Or I just got it from the Criterion box sale, um, not box sale, flash sale. I got it's a massive box set, so so now I'm gonna have 3 copies of
yeah.
Three Colors trilogy. Now that one I like a little more. I love the Bedecker films, but Three Colors is more my speed. So since there's been some Teal Ray controversy, Teal Ray, I don't know if your listeners know, is the color grading.
Oh, I know. It's in my
That's right.
Criterion
That's right.
song.
Yeah.
You got just listen to the Criterion song. Yeah, it was back when Bull Durham got all the hate
But
at that time.
actually going to put
Um,
them on my player and see. I'll put red because that's a very colorful movie, and see how different they are, if at all. It's possible that it's just going to look basically the same. So
yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. There was a little bit of controversy around the new 4K of the Three Colors trilogy, but it was, if I do recall, it was approved by the
yeah,
cinematographer.
I'll say I have to be careful how I phrase this. There were a couple early reviews, I think, that I think I'll just say that I really wanted to hear from Gary from DVD Beaver before I really had an opinion on that, because I just trust Gary, and yeah, sure, some there have been times where he's been controversial with color grading topics. Frankly, um, one of our guests, they called it pixel pushing, just really looking at every pixel and trying to determine if that's the film they remembered. but um, but Gary's trustworthy, and he loved the set. He gave it his highest recommendation, and I'll be watching it soon. So I try not to let those kind of things bother me. They all look great.
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's something I think I've talked about too, where there have been several releases and re-releases of movies that have had different aesthetics to it. Steven always brings up The Matrix, how the new 4Ks of The Matrix had a different aesthetic to it, and that was approved by the cinematographer. And then there've been, I mean, I talk about this every time there's a release announcement for any of the movies in the Man with No Name trilogy. It feels like those movies get re-released so many times with different aesthetics, specifically The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I know it's like, is it supposed to be yellow? Is that yellow too yellow? What's the aesthetic supposed to be? I know The French Connection was another one that the early Blu-ray and the newer edition Blu-ray had two different aesthetics to it, color timings. One was warmer than the other, if I remember. Like they would always show a screenshot of like green grass, and the grass was greener in one and kind of more washed out in the other. And of course, there's so many arguments on the Blu-ray forums about all of these things, and it gives me a headache
Yeah, me,
sometimes.
me too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so yeah, the yeah, I'm with you. That Bud Bedecker set is great. I actually kind of went through it the other day before we talked about it, and it's tough, man. I mean, and not even just on a the fact that
Mhm.
packaging is nice as well. I really enjoy that. And any indicator box set's just such a well put together
Solid,
solid thing.
simple,
Um,
simple and solid. That's what I like.
yeah. Um, but we of course got some other things. Of course, you did bring up Breathless did get a 4K upgrade was one of the other things, and I think we as we always say with things that are kind of getting upgrades, it might be the first time somebody buys something, and this might be. I mean, for them, this would be the best version, hopefully, of that thing. So it's not always a bad thing to see the re-release of something that is kind of an essential of course a kind of a essential for the Criterion Collection starter
Yeah,
Sure.
pack kind of
yeah,
thing.
that was literally my
Yeah,
my whole thing, Aaron, was that, like, I feel like there are certain movies within the Criterion Collection that's like it's like Criterion
Mhm.
101, Criterion Essential Basic if you're just starting out, and I feel like 400 Blows, Breathless seems to always be in there. Like, I guess I am biased because I go back to when I started collecting, and every single time I saw a list or a video or something, those movies were always there at the beginning of it all, and
Mhm.
yeah, that I always feel like that's essential, and it's been re-released
Yeah.
several times. It had 2 Blu-ray releases. One was the standard Blu-ray, and one was when they were starting out with the dual formats. They re-released Breathless, and then of course the 4K now, and it's
and
yeah,
then
it's
they
essential.
did. I believe they studio could
Mhm.
output out a
Yeah.
4K too last year. So so yeah, it's had its time. And I mean, I honestly, like you said, I appreciate the movie more than I like it, but I do think I've liked
Mhm.
it the more I've watched it. I think I've watched it maybe 3 or 4 times now, and the more I watch it, the more I kind of enjoy watching it. And it doesn't feel so much like a chore. Maybe the first time I watched it, I thought it was a little bit of a chore, and then started to understand what he was going for in the film more, and it's become a lot more
Sure. I have
enjoyable.
no idea
But
what you're talking about with Godard. No, but great point, Andrew.
shit,
About
yeah,
I'm really deliberate. You both know that I also moderate or admin a couple Criterion groups. One is our Facebook or our podcast group, which
yeah.
is a pretty good sized group, and we have great discussions there. The other one is like 16,000 people, I think. I haven't looked lately, and it's a lot tougher. But the thing is, I'm very deliberate about not wanting to like gatekeep and say like, okay, sure,
Yeah.
I don't want a disc measuring contest. I want if somebody has not
Yeah.
seen Breathless for the first time, then congrats, you won the Breathless lottery. You got the best version when it was your time to see it. Um, does that mean I'm going to buy it? No, maybe someday, but I just love seeing people discover films, whether it's Criterion and Andrew. Great point about like I don't want to say uh, the, the um, like the essential library, but just like those titles you associate with like old Janus. So like the Italian neorealism, the French New Wave, of course, American New Wave. There's a lot of great ones. So yeah, it's a great time to be alive if you want to watch movies.
Oh yeah. And some of the other ones we got in the announcement, the
Hmm.
watermelon woman was the other big one. I think people have been waiting a while to get that one in the collection. Um, Tell us any
I
thoughts
haven't
about
seen
that
it.
one?
So it was on the channel for like I think it's probably still on the
Oh,
channel. But I've heard a lot about it. I know there's
yeah.
nothing. I don't believe it has anything in connection with Watermelon Man, which I've seen, which is the Van Peebles. But
No.
Cheryl Dunn, I believe. So I'm really looking forward to. Is Danae?
Dene, yeah, is it pronounced Dene?
Danae? Okay.
Denier? I'm not good with pronunciations, but yeah. It's that '90s
Yeah.
kind of indie, thing, and it's a powerful little movie, and I know Andrew really loves it. I've seen it
Yeah,
one time, and it's been a while, but
yeah, I've
yeah,
seen it. I've seen it twice, and it wasn't the easiest film to track down until it ended up streaming on the
yeah.
Criterion channel there for a bit. And I think I want to say it's been on DVD, and that was really it. I don't think it hasn't been too popularized or anything. I think it's had a bit of a revival over the last few years. The big thing for me is you also get like a lot of Shordunye's short films are on there as well, and they were up on the Criterion channel for a while too. And I kind of blitzed through them. They're very short but very specific, and they all kind of were dealing with similar themes as that the
Hmm.
Watermelon Woman is. So that was kind of a nice companion piece to that. But the last film here is the One False Move, which is the '90s neo noir, if I remember, Stephen.
Yeah,
Um,
Carl Franklin.
Carl Franklin, who's
It's in
it's his second time, I guess, in the Criterion Class. I actually have his first film right here,
Yeah,
Devil in the Blue
that's a good
Dress.
one.
Devil in a Blue Dress.
Yep.
So it's kind of cool that he's guess it must have come as a package deal.
That's a good
Those
movie,
two movies.
really good movie. I think people are gonna be surprised. Yeah, and Imprint has put out a lot of those post noirs, so that this one would fit right along with those sets. Actually, wait, wasn't it in one of those sets? It was,
It
yeah,
was in the
and
first
it's a great
Imprint
movie.
set,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
The
and now,
the neo noir, yeah. So yeah, it's
so, oh, so now I have another
go ahead.
quandary. Do I buy that since I already have it? So yeah,
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, I used to be a single edition guy. Like I used to be all about like I want to get every movie in its own edition thing, but now, um, buying a box set is not only is it beautiful. Most of these
yeah,
box sets are really beautiful things because aesthetically, I just like looking at them. But it's also typically a
hmm,
good discount. When you're thinking of buying things in bulk, you can buy 4 or 5 movies for you know at $20 a piece when a single edition of a limited edition movie or $30 to $40. It's like you start trying to
totally,
divide
yeah.
it depending on what label you're talking about. You start to divide it down, and you're getting a good deal when you buy a box set. So it's I'm sure that Criterion disc is going to have some extra bits that maybe that Imprint release didn't have, but um, it's still a good movie. Once again, if you haven't been able to
Hmm.
get that Imprint set, it's going to be a good one
Andrew,
to get. So
Andrew and Steven, that Gordon Lewis Feast box set is probably $5 a movie. And guess how many I've watched? One. One.
none of them. One. Yeah. I funny enough, I had I got that set, not the original limited edition set, but I bought the standard set that came out later. And then a guy on Twitter, I wish I had his name with me now, but he was getting rid of his limited
Oh,
edition,
wow.
just the box. Like he wanted to keep the movies, so he was like, if anybody missed out on the limited edition box, here it is. All you got to do is pay a shipping fee, and so I was able to get it from him. So I have that big, feast cereal box set with the standard edition discs in it because they group them up differently. So technically, I got like some like disc missing spots in that set now because they double
It's a
up on.
Frankenstein of a set now.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
doubled up on movies and in the discs and stuff, but they're low quality movies anyway, so it's not didn't really bother me. Um, but yeah, I don't know why I went on that tangent, just because
Oh,
you
no,
brought up
I was
Herschel
actually
Gordon
thinking of
Lewis.
that same story when you brought that up.
Yeah,
Um, but we can
but I want
transition.
shout out to that person that I don't know your name. Thanks
Yeah,
for
no,
that set.
shout out to mystery person. But I
Yeah,
guess we can transition into more
Yeah.
current releases and stuff from this last week. Might as well.
do it.
Let's jump in this week. Not a lot this week as compared to last week, but we do have some interesting things, and we do have a headliner at the end with a big
I think we
box set
do have a lot.
bonanza.
We technically have a lot to talk about. It's
Movie
just
wise,
from
not necessarily
less
release wise.
labels, less
Yeah.
amount of labels.
So I guess we'll start off with maybe the most obscure, and I think that's Sandpiper Pictures.
Okay.
Um, it's one that I keep hearing about. It is a U.S. label, but it's not one that I guess it gets a lot of notoriety. But they're putting out some very interesting movies, in my opinion. Um, so their releases that are upcoming, I believe they're supposed to come out in June 13th. I'm seeing here, is is Lawman, Scorpio, and One Man's Hero. And the reason why these movies caught my eye is because Lawman is a Western, so that's automatically piques my interest, starring Burt Lancaster, Robert Ryan, and Lee J. Cobb, or as I like to know him, the actor who has never met a role he doesn't like to yell in is Lee J. Cobb, and it's just that's just him. And so that's fascinating to me. I didn't get a chance to see any of these films, but they all piqued my interest a bit. Just the name of just because of the actor in that film alone, in Lawman, and I think Lawman was directed by Michael
It's like
Winner,
does
who
look like Burt Lancaster's in the second film as
he's
well.
also in the second film.
He's in Scorpio.
He's also in Scorpio. Also, I believe directed by Michael Winner. I think all of his films. No, maybe I have to check the last one, but Michael Winner, my memory serves, is the director of Death Wish and Death Wish 2, perhaps? I probably should look that up, but I did it at the time. Uh, it, but yeah, and One Man's Hero is not Michael Winner, but One Man's Hero does star Tom Berenger in a film from 1999. And when I think of Tom Berenger, I think of Major League and Platoon. Is that what
Come
comes
on, man!
to?
You don't think of the movie
He's
the
also in
amazing
Inception.
let's not forget his amazing role in the movie The Substitute.
Oh, I
You've ever
didn't.
seen The
I've
Substitute?
never seen The Substitute, so
Aaron, you've
no.
seen The
I'm
Substitute?
sure I have, but
Come on,
I don't have a review for you.
come on, man! It's like the movie Lean on Me, but just following a substitute teacher. He kind of becomes a substitute for this kind of like urban crime ridden kind of school, and it's like it's a whole thing. But it's one I watched a lot growing up for some reason. It was in my parents' VHS collection, so
Ah,
I've seen it probably 20 times when I was in
yeah.
my first 15 years of my life.
That's kind of yeah.
But
Michael,
it's
yeah, I
weird.
was saying Michael Winner did direct Death Wish 2. He also directed Death Wish 3, and he directed the movie The Sentinel, which
Yeah, that is a
which
good one.
is a
Yeah.
movie that I really like.
Yeah, it was probably on HBO or Showtime or Cinemax back in the old days of cable. A lot of those movies were. I probably saw it, but yeah, I trust you, Steven.
Oh yeah, I trust you. I trust you too, Steven.
Sure, yeah, trust me.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I know the Sentinel because the Sentinel has a Blu-ray release from Shout Factory from 2015 that is still in print, and I remember watching that. Probably on Shutter, maybe a year or two ago, or several years now. These years keep running together. Basically, everything since 2020 has been a bit of a blur for I think many people,
Mm.
including myself. Um, but I did want to shout out these three films from Sandpiper Pictures, and there's a couple of other films as well. Romeo is Bleeding and A Prayer for Dying, which are also coming out in June. Very interesting titles. Romeo is Bleeding stars Gary Oldman and Roy Scheider. So
That's a pretty good cast.
that's a
Yeah.
pretty cool cast there. It's a film from 1993. So this is obviously much later in their career. So that actually early Gary Oldman,
Mhm.
later Roy Scheider. And then A Prayer for Dying is Mickey Rourke, who is, I believe, a member of the IRA, and it's about that kind of IRA first British government type of war and things like that. And Bob
Mm.
Hoskins is in the film. It's Mickey Rourke in the 1980s. I find endlessly fascinating because that's like prime Mickey Rourke before his career kind of evolved into not the greatest place.
He decided he
Right.
wanted to become a boxer,
Mhm.
and
Yes,
he
that
wanted
is what I was
and he
going to say
li
next.
yeah, and then he messed up his face, and then there's your acting career. I mean, but then again, he still gets roles. He's still got a name.
He's still
But
in movies now, but he's not a name really anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
he did have his comeback with The Wrestler, but that was what
he's also known for
2007.
Yeah.
being difficult. So that's probably the
Well,
other
that is
reason.
also,
But
and apparently he
yeah,
was also a very difficult actor when he was younger as well, and then that
yeah.
carried over to his adult acting life and all that kind of stuff. But he was
Mhm.
really good actor in the 80s.
Oh
My
yeah,
Um,
question is,
he's
does he
solid.
do an
Yeah.
Irish accent
I mean,
in that movie?
That's what I'm
I would
I
be
mean,
wondering
he's
interested
if
to
myself.
hear
Hoskins
that.
is there,
Yeah.
I think there's a chance, or a British accent. So I don't know. That could be a train wreck, or might not be. Um, could be gold.
Or it
Could
could
be
be
gold.
gold,
I
for
remember
all we know.
Romeo's Bleeding was one of those kind of like post Pulp Fiction, um, uh, '90s indies. I believe so. So you're definitely going to see the stamp of Tarantino on it. But it's been a while. I saw it when it came
Okay.
out, but I remember it being very good. So yeah, I might check that out.
Yeah,
Cool.
Prayer for Dying is directed by Mike Hodges, who, of course, just recently passed away. The director of Get Carter, Croupier.
Croupier.
I never know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Croupier, and yeah, so that kind of puts a little extra wrinkle on it for me. I've been getting his films have been getting a lot of releases lately, just announcements. Just
I'm supposed to be sending you the Imprint title, or did I already send it to you? He's got that other one too. Didn't he do the film, the one with Clive Owens as well?
Yeah,
oh
Just
yeah, I'll
yeah. I'll
came out
sleep
sleep
when
when
I'm
I'm dead.
dying.
Yeah,
I'm Sleep When I'm
actually,
Dying. Yeah, yeah,
we're big
yeah,
Clive
yeah.
Owens fans here. I think my wife had a crush before pre-Aaron, didn't we all? So
Didn't
so
we
we
all?
actually had a Croupier
Mm.
poster on the wall. I wasn't trying to like be a gatekeeper, though, to use the word I yeah. But
No, you're just saying no. Please
Croupier
correct us when we're wrong.
is
We're
a
wrong a lot.
film close to our
Yeah,
Um,
hearts, and we also saw it. I'll Sleep When I'm Dead is not as good, but we'll watch it again just to see old Clive.
there's a Clive Owen movie I would like to see people discover more. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called The
Hmm.
Boys. Um, oh no, wait, it's called The Boys Are Back. That's what it's called. And he plays like a widowed father, a widower who's got to take care of his son. It's like a drama. It's a very much a kind of a sentimental type of drama, but it's really good. It came out maybe in the
2009.
2009. There you go. You got it for me. Thank
Mm.
you. Pretty good. I got a DVD. I think I have a DVD of it. It's one of the DVDs I've held on to because it's like I don't think it's got a Blu-ray. And when we were talking to the guy from Ari from Umbrella, he was asking us, "Are there some movies that we haven't picked?" I told him Charlie Bartlett, but now and he told us to send him a list of other movies that haven't really gotten Blu-ray releases that they should think about releasing. I'm going to send them
That's cool.
the boys back
I,
because the
s-
boys are back.
I
That's
chose the
another one.
state. I chose the station agent, and as soon as he mentioned that Miramax owns the rights, I was like, "This is never going to
It's
see the light."
never mind.
Never mind. The rights issues for those
They
movies
are,
are
but
a bit of
I
a
think they'll
mess.
come out someday. That's a great movie though. The Station Agent is really mhm.
Super underrated, and I've had the DVD for years. I found it randomly used DVD shopping, and it was just
Yeah.
one that I would just pick out kind of random stuff that looked
Mhm.
interesting because it was so cheap, and then it ended up being just a diamond in the rough. Uh,
So what is your favorite Clive Owens? Mine's got to be Children of Men.
Yeah,
Children of Men's just all time favorite film
yeah, I'm
in
with you
general.
there.
So
Speaking of which,
um,
we don't have
yeah,
U.S. Region A release of that yet either.
yeah, true. I mean, there's we definitely haven't gotten a 4K,
Right. We had,
and that's a
I
movie
guess,
that
not a
would
boutique is what I'm saying.
yeah, we haven't gotten a boutique release. I definitely have a steel book that was Region A, but we really haven't gotten a boutique Children of Men release. So yeah, please somebody get on that if they can, because I would definitely buy it for the third time. Um, because I do have the Arrow release of it as well, but which is a Region B. But yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
have that too. That's a good release. Oh, he was in Elizabeth. He's been in a
a lot
lot
of
of
good
things.
stuff. And he's still around. It's just it feels like he's just not getting as many juicy roles lately. I don't know
no, I
why.
mean he had his big, run in the 2000s where he was just in so many
Hmm.
different things, and then I think with a lot of actors, like their careers kind of taper off a little bit, and it's hard to like jump back into things. Because
Ah,
once Hollywood uses you, they kind of get rid of you. they,
spit you
they,
out. If you
They
saw
spit you out.
Babylon, you know what we're talking about. No,
uh, very true. But that's
but
Actually, hold that thought about Babylon.
yeah.
That's Sandpiper Pictures. We'll move on from Sandpiper, I guess, over to Old Reliable, Ever Present, Kino, Kino Lorber Studio Classics. There's just a couple of releases this time around, only about 3 this week, but one is a collection of movies. And that's the one I do wanna start off with, but I do wanna mention, Steven, did we talk about the release of Ronin, the 4K that they're doing? I feel like we
I
forgot
do
to
not.
talk
I
about
don't
that.
think we talked about it now, but I
I don't
mean,
think we talked about it because it gives me the opportunity to once again remind people that this movie has one of the greatest car chase sequences I think you'll ever see in film, one of the most best edited. And I feel like it
yeah,
should be the template for every car chase sequence that people put in movies nowadays. It's like just edit it similar to this. This teaches you everything you need to know. And Luckily, this movie is once again getting another release. It did get a Blu-ray release from Arrow a couple of years ago, and that's when I rebought it because the old original Blu-ray, I think, was like an MPEG 2 codec release from like the late 2000s. Wasn't very impressive. So the Arrow release is the one that I've been touting for years, and now we're getting a 4K UHD release from Kino. It is a 2-disc edition. Yes, it is, and I think it is coming with most of, if not all of the special features from that Arrow release. So I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is, plus some other stuff as well. Um, yeah, I love Ronin, John Schlesinger.
Frankenheimer. Yeah,
Frankenheimer.
it
Frankenheimer,
is
it's a Frankenheimer or
Frankenheimer.
It's
Slash?
Frankenheimer.
It's
Yeah.
Frankenheimer, yeah. I get my Johns confused, I guess. But yeah,
John Singleton. John could have
John
been went
Ford.
through a lot of Johns,
Yeah,
but yeah,
John Ford.
I
But yeah,
believe this was, I believe,
Yeah,
Frankenheimer's
it
last
was
film,
late,
wasn't
if
it?
not. Yeah,
it was one of his latest. After this, he did end up doing Reindeer Games with
Okay.
Ben Affleck.
Oof, Jesus
His
Christ.
last
Oh,
theatrical film was actually Reindeer Games. After that was
damn,
a couple
man.
of shorts, a TV movie, Paths to War, and then his last thing was a short.
No,
Um, but yeah, this is one of his last films. But Ronin is a fantastic film starring Robert De Niro, Jean Reno, Stellan Skarsgård's in the film, Sean Bean. Um, yeah, it's a great like a 90s thriller, espionage film, heist film. Really great film. I mean, I can't recommend this movie enough. I'm
can't
pretty sure
recommend
you
John
guys have seen it.
Frankenheimer. Can't recommend John Frankenheimer enough.
Yeah,
Like he's a filmmaker that just did it for so he's kind of in the same realm for me as like a Sidney Lumet that did it for so long and was so consistent with putting out good stuff. I mean, yeah,
yeah. Well,
Aaron,
I'm
please
glad Andrew brought
thoughts
up
on
the chase
Frankenheimer.
scenes because honestly, when I remember watching that and just being blown away, and I wouldn't say chase scene, I would say chase scenes. Like I think it's one of some of my favorite car footage, just driving footage in film. And I agree, it was edited great, looked fantastic. So I'm probably gonna grab this 4K and because I haven't seen it since then as well. But it feels like a great film for that format. So yeah, that's a good one, Kino.
yeah, very
Yeah,
much so.
they
Yeah.
you know, I know you're, you know, you got to tell me, how do you feel about Kino just stealing all the 4K versions of
Oh,
Criterion?
Criterion.
It
I
seems
don't
to
care.
happen a lot.
Actually,
Yeah.
bought I
I
bought
know.
a
I'm just
couple of
fucking
'em,
with you, man.
and yeah, some of them, and that's one thing, being in this hobby, I guess, for lack of a better word. You get
Yeah.
to know people, and sometimes it's like Kino gets a lot of my friends to do features for them. So yeah, sometimes I buy it just to
Yeah.
watch their stuff. So yeah,
No, I know. I'm just. I know you're. I know we've discussed it already before. You're not just a. Though you do a Criterion podcast, you're not
right.
just like elitist to Criterion. I only like Criterion. No, you like
And
everything.
and
You
and
just. I
Kino's been
just
doing
mess
a
with you.
great job with these too. So if Kino,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll always have the criterion, but if you really love the film and it's
Of
worth
course.
buying for a new commentary or a new I don't know a new restoration, of course, or new transfer, then yeah, I think it's nice to have options.
I mean, yeah, the 12 Angry Men release is one I kind of want to get because it's got that other the 90s version of the
Hmm.
film as well of
Oh, cool.
that Jack Lemmon did um in that set as well. So it's one I kind of want to get to as well. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's this is a good Ronin's a good pickup. I think I think I have like an old Blu-ray, so I might upgrade this one myself. But what's next, Andrew?
Up next is indeed the collection that I was talking about, and this is the Mr. Wong collection.
Oh
Films
man.
from 1938 to 1940. And you may be surprised at who plays the title character, Mr. Wong, and that is one Boris Karloff. And
I'm
you
not
also
surprised.
maybe thinking to yourself, wait a minute, is Boris Karloff
He's
from that
Asian,
particular
right?
part of the
He's
world?
Asian.
Yeah, he is not. He very much is not. This is once again, yeah, I would say that it's kind of old Hollywood being old Hollywood, but this type of stuff happens directly to this day, pretty
Well,
much.
I was making fun of you earlier for being Fu Manchu. Well,
And it
he's
was
not.
Christopher Lee
It's
who
Christopher
is
Lee is
not
not
No.
not
that.
not Asian.
No, no, not a no. But but I guess they were capitalizing on the Boris Karloff name to kind of sell these movies at the time, and these are all brand new HD masters from 2K scans, and there's quite a few films here. I'm just gonna read them off. It is a 2 disc set, so they're cramming quite a few movies on each of these discs, but these movies are like an hour to like an hour and 15
Mhm.
minutes long. They're not long at all. But we have Mr. Wong Detective, The Mystery of Mr. Wong in Chinatown, The Fatal Hour, and then Doomed to Die, also known as The Mystery of the Wentworth Castle. Um, and they don't really list. The only thing they have here for special features are commentaries. Um, but you can probably find most of these online. I know at least Mr. Wong Detective and the Mystery of Mr. Wong you can find streaming on um, Amazon Prime right now, and they it looks pretty much kind of like a public domain print that's been available probably for a very long time. My guess is that's what the quality will be for the rest of these films. So if anything, these films are going to look fantastic, and I think the Boris Karloff name kind of sells it. Um, but it's a very interesting, racist racist depiction
I
of a
was I was
character.
gonna say if you can get past the
You can get past
problematicness of it,
the racism.
It
I
it
guess this is pretty.
it's there's gonna be people that want to complete their Boris Karloff collection that
Andrew,
will
Right.
buy
I
this.
think they need to put that on
I
the,
mean,
the case. If you can get past the racism, you're gonna love this.
It's gonna be fantastic. You're gonna love it.
I
Yeah.
mean, I did get to watch the first film, and it's a fine like murder mystery type of thing. I mean, I will say this: Boris Karloff is not he's not playing up the fact that he's from that part of the world. It's not a Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's situation where it's the over the top caricature and all that kind of stuff. But he does have the mustache. He is wearing the clothes. It is very off putting for probably many people as probably as it should be. But it is Boris Karloff kind of hamming up the scenes, making the most out of this. I think this is based off of I don't know if it's like novels of the time or based off of maybe like a serial or something like that. So it is based off of like previous material, if I was reading correctly. Yeah, it's a 2 disc set, and I didn't really count how many movies were on each disc, but it is quite a few. It, it's
It's
fine.
like 5 on one, 4 on the other, so or
Yeah,
5 and 5, something like that.
yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3 on one,
Mm.
and then 2 on another.
That's what
Yeah.
sorry, I was looking at both of these discs like there was 2 different
Ah,
disc
gotcha.
releases.
But moving on from there, we do have a 3D film. Once again, just a random 3D release of a film well
This
past.
one's pretty random. Yeah,
Yeah, this is
for
Prison
Tina.
Girls from 1972. And this is they have a 3D and I believe the 2D version of this movie on here as well. I wasn't aware that 3D made a comeback in the 70s. I know it usually comes back every couple of decades. I would think we really just got past our 3D phase a couple of years ago. Where in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, they brought 3D back. Steven hated the heck out of it. I remember him saying that so many times.
I always do.
Um, and I remember it came back in the 50s because I remember Hitchcock used it
So,
for one of
yeah,
his films, Dial M for Murder. It came back in the 80s when we had didn't wasn't there Jaws
there was
3D as well as Friday the
there was
13th
Jaws
3D.
3D. Yes.
So
Yeah. There
they
was
even did
also,
they did it with it.
Jason had a 3D movie,
Yeah,
or yeah.
they did it. Yeah, and they do it every couple of decades. It's kind of a newish gimmick, if you will, or revived gimmick. And this, I guess, was the case back in 1972. But Steven, I don't know really much about this film other than I believe it's directed by the same director who did Reform Schoolgirls, who I think it's Tom DeSimone is his name, and that was the Vinegar Syndrome release, if I remember, Reform Schoolgirls. I think it was part of the VSA line. I'd have to look that up. I actually remember really liking Reform Schoolgirls for what it is, kind of this sleazy, like prison, like all women's prison film in the same vein as John Waters, who I would fail to mention that it is
It
his
is.
birthday today as we're filming this. So I have to whip that out, and I have to once
Which,
again post my or show my Pink Flamingos copy of Criterion that I always have
there
next to
you
me
go.
for motivation. Um,
And
so that's that.
I
I
have
had to get a John
polyester in my
Waters reference
background.
in.
I don't know if people can see it still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. I see it above your head. Yep.
I did see it above your head. Divine and Tab Hunter. Um, it's yeah, so I had to mention that, but this film seems to be also in that same vein of like 1970s like trashy type of film. If I was to go out on a limb and say that.
All right.
Mm.
Sounds
So
good.
I think
And
there's one left, and could be far from what I was just talking about. And this is a adaptation of a novel by Ernest Hemingway, starring Gary Cooper and Ingrid Bergman. I think I've seen this film, and that is For Whom the Bell Tolls. And now, Steven, in your mind right now, is the Metallica song playing? Because it's playing in
nope.
mind. Okay, that's just me.
I've never been a huge Metallica fan, so I
Oh, but you've
it's
heard the
not.
song For Whom the Bell Tolls, right?
I'm sure I have. It just
Oh,
doesn't. It's
you
not.
disappoint me.
You and Aaron can team up on me on this because I don't. As much as I have created music, I haven't. I don't. Honestly, I got so invested in movies that music has taken a backseat.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Metallica's
spend
been
a lot of
around
time.
for like
Sure,
35 years.
but I don't go around discovering new music all the time anymore. Like I'm honestly kind of like I'm just out of the loop. I
Well,
just
yeah,
don't.
that I agree with you kind of on that. It's really hard to keep up with modern music because there's so much of it, and
Yeah,
it's
and I listen to podcasts more than I listen to music when I'm doing
Yeah, but
stuff.
I think it
So
was on Master of Puppets, right?
yeah,
So, but it's probably not a big song. So, like, if you've heard 5 big Metallica songs, this probably is not one of them. The book is good though.
yeah, I don't know
yeah.
if it's one of their yeah, but I'm pretty sure they used it at the opening title sequence of Zombieland
Oh, cool.
was For Whom the Bell Tolls. When they had like a montage of like all the events that happened during the zombie apocalypse, I'm pretty sure they played For Whom the Bell Tolls. Um, that's what I remember it from, and of course, I've been listening to Metallica since I was a little kid, so that I've heard it a million times.
So you're cooler than me. Fine,
Oh
Andrew.
yes,
Fine.
that's the
You're just
main
cooler
point I
than me.
wanted to get across.
You're just
I
more
mean,
metal than I am.
I
That's
thought we were
fine.
going to have a bonding situation where we would bond over our mutual love of Metallica, but I guess that's not the case.
It's not going to be the case
And
because
I don't know if you're a big Ernest Hemingway fan, either.
I
So
probably not because I
probably
haven't
not.
really not, not
But
that
this is
I couldn't be, but
yeah, but this is this is in a classic Hollywood film from 1943. It's an adaptation of a classic literary novel. It stars two all time you know Hollywood actors. So this is right up my alley, really, and right up the alley of a lot of people in the same ilk as me. Basically, a lot of people who went to TCM Fest last weekend. I think this is the release for them. Ingrid Bergman is actually my favorite actress of all time, so yeah, I kind of have to buy this just by proxy.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
so I'm excited for this. Doesn't look like there's any special features announced, but there is a this is a coming from a brand new HD master from a 4K scan from the Roadshow edition. So this is obviously the longer cut of the movie. So that's kind of cool.
Awesome.
Mm.
Alrighty. Well, let's move on over to two of the bigger slates we have this week. Let's start with Warner Archive. Warner Archive has got a slate of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, the last one I'm not even going to bring up because it's Looney
Oh,
Tunes.
I'll just slide it in there just for my own personal.
Okay, fine. We'll
All
slide
right.
in Looney Tunes. But other than that, we have first here King Solomon's Mines, and second we have Hey There, It's Yogi Bear. So I say, since we got Hey There, It's Yogi Bear, I guess we can bring up Looney Tunes. Queen Christina is another film we have here, and then we have The Courtship of Eddie's father, which I thought that was just always something that was brought up in the movie Scrooged. And that's where I heard the name of this movie for the first time is The Ghost from Christmas Past is like talking to him about his, his life, Bill Murray about his life, and he's like describing this movie, and he's like, "No, that's a scene from Courtship of Eddie's Father. That's not you." Like I'm like, "Oh, that's where that reference that's the movie." Um, and then we have the boy with green hair. We have Clash by Night, and then Border Incident. So please, guys, I was not able to spend any time on these films to really look into them. So you guys take the floor and tell me what stands out. Aaron, what stands out to you here?
Uh, so that would be Queen Christina.
Okay.
And actually, the timing's interesting because, first off, if you don't know how big Garbo was in 1930? I mean, like there might not have been a bigger star. I mean, I think Dietrich comes close a couple years later,
Right.
but Garbo was like a goddess. So yeah, Queen Christina. A lot of people. I know it's been a very divisive film, but the film Babylon had a really interesting story. I don't I don't know where I stand on that movie, but I liked the Brad Pitt stuff the best of what was there, and his that story was about John Gilbert, who happens to be the co-lead for Queen Christina, and it's been a while since I studied it, but my memory is that Garbo really got him that gig because he was really on the outs. And if you watch it, I think he does a fine job, but you can probably see why he was not going to last in the sound era. So I think for that trivia, it's kind of interesting just to see him give it a go. But there's a really iconic closing scene, and I don't want to spoil, but those who've seen it know. I mean, what I'll just say about it is that it really speaks to Garbo's stardom and the way the last shot. Is just Garbo is just larger than life. So yeah, I think it's huge that it's coming out on Blu-ray, and I can't wait to get it. I think a lot of people like it.
Oh yeah, I can't wait either. Like I was saying, it has been one of my most sought after upgrades from DVD for years, and Warner Archive still right now is doing some of the best restoration work for their back catalog of any studio. Whatever process they're doing, whatever funding they've got for it, it looks all the releases look incredible over the last several years, and this is getting a 4K restoration from whatever surviving elements are still around, and I can't wait to own this because it's been long sought after for me. But some of the other things here on the list that I think fascinate me the most um, are um, Hey There, It's Yogi Bear. I've been a like lover of Hanna-Barbera cartoons since I was a very young child. The Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, the Jetsons, all of those, characters and whatnot. And we don't get a lot of animation on Blu-ray these days, specifically older animation, from the 60s, really. Warner Bros. Has been trying to put out a lot of the older Looney Tunes stuff, which they do here as well. But just a lot of that stuff, I guess, doesn't really sell well to a large crowd. As it is, Looney Tunes was coming out through their main line. Like I remember being in Best Buy and being able to buy Blu-rays of Looney Tunes cartoons, 5 to 6 to 7, 8 years ago, and now they're releasing it through their Warner Archive title, which is kind of a little smaller label and whatnot. But so this is really fascinating for me because it is a theatrical film that they did for Yogi Bear back in the '60s, back in 1964. Um, I have the DVD of the television series, the Yogi Bear television series, and this is going to be such a treat for me. I think for a lot of people who are fans of Yogi Bear, just classic upon classic. And I'm hoping it looks fantastic too, because it was tough to find the movie to watch in its proper theatrical aspect ratio. I think a lot of what I found was the typical 4:3, 1:3 to 1 that you would have probably watched on a VHS tape or would have been maybe shown on TV back in the day and whatnot. So this is kind of a big nostalgic trip for me. I kind of can't wait to have this in my collection to go along with some stuff, and hopefully we get some more classic animation stuff. I would love for them to put out some of their other classic titles, their Hanna Barbera stuff. Um, Huckleberry Hound and Snagglepuss and all this kind of stuff. So that's just a nostalgia pick for me. Um, I was fortunate enough to get to see all of these films, um, and some of these are really fascinating, really great pick. I think Border Incident is really interesting and really kind of rather contemporary in dealing with like illegal immigration and organized crime. In that, it's directed by Anthony Mann, who of course did Winchester '73, The Naked Spur, The Man from Laramie, Furies, which has a Criterion release. So that's kind of interesting. And yeah, Clash by Night stars Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Ryan, and that's kind of always something I'm interested in. And also, I believe it's directed by Fritz Lang. So since I've got a Fritz Lang collection or
I was
section,
gonna
I've got to
say
get some Fritz Lang in
that
there.
that hits me a lot. If I'm looking through Warner, like when we just had the Warner Archive sale, I pulled a Fritz Lang out for that sale just because I hadn't gotten it yet, and I'm afraid, he's got these little small movies that came out when he came over to Hollywood that I think can be little gems if you give them a chance, and yeah, so I'll probably be picking that one up myself.
Yeah, and you know that The Boy with the Green Hair is directed by Joseph Losey.
Huh.
It's his
I'm picking
first.
that one. I'm
It's his
picking
first
that one up.
film.
I'm picking that one up too.
Yeah, it's his first film.
I
And
just
this
got
is
done. I just got done watching one. I don't want to give it away, but I
oh,
did
okay.
just watch another one of his films because I got it from the Kino sale. So
Nice, nice. I got yeah. So I was interesting to check it out because it's an interesting movie starring once again Robert Ryan, Pat O'Brien, Dean Stockwell plays the little boy in this film. Dean Stockwell who just passed away a couple of years ago, and this was his first film ever, just as a little child actor, and it's an interesting film dealing with kind of like traumatic child events and how one goes through it. And in this film, this young boy is orphaned during World War II. And once he kind of comes to the realization that his parents are gone, his hair turns green. And it's kind of a physical manifestation of that trauma. So it's very, very interesting. And in dealing with that type of stuff, specifically a film from 1948, you know, we don't talk a lot about mental health stuff, let alone mental health stuff dealing with children um, today, let alone back in 1948. So, and I know this movie's been making not the rounds, but I knew it was streaming on the Criterion Channel for a little while, and I know TCM shows it a few times a year.
Hmm.
all right. Anything else to add to that, Aaron? Anything else that stand out to you?
I think it's a good. I was going to say the word haul. I think it's a good release slate for Kino. One I'll mention is King Solomon's Mines.
Warner Archive.
Oh,
Warner
I'm
Archive.
sorry, Warner Archive. I knew that. I just said the wrong word.
Yeah.
King Solomon's Mines. I know it was remade in the '80s, and so I I have seen the original, but it's been a while, and it's been kind of like the '80s is kind of like, you know, um, I guess remember that version pretty well. I think it's a pretty good movie. Probably a B movie adventure, but those are sometimes very, very fun.
I
Yeah.
think it was an influence for Indiana Jones.
Definitely, yeah. And I think
Yeah,
actually the remake they were trying to capitalize or maybe recapitalize on their property, but yeah, nobody was catching up to Indy.
no,
Yeah.
no, but I would say this kind of an underrated pick on this list is The Courtship of Eddie's Father, starring um, a very young Ron Howard plays a little boy in this
That's
film,
right.
and Glenn Ford plays his father. Shirley Jones is in the film as well. She was just, I think, just celebrated her birthday. This is directed by Vincente Minnelli, who
Hmm.
is, um, a big. We were talking about Scorsese earlier. Scorsese championed Vincente Minnelli still to this day. Of course, this Vincente Minnelli directed a lot of great films, and of course, he is the father of Liza Minnelli. He was married to Judy Garland. He directed her in Meet Me in St. Louis, I think amongst other films as well. But this film is an interesting kind of a take that you've seen in other films going on. It reminded me a lot of Sleepless in Seattle. I don't know why, but
Wow. Hmm.
Glenn Ford is a widowed father who's raising his son, portrayed by Ron Howard, and he's, I guess, getting back on. back out there in the dating world. Trying to find another wife after his wife, I believe, had passed away, and his son is this precocious kid, as Ron Howard plays him, and he has this next door neighbor who's portrayed by Shirley Jones, who is, of course, probably the best match for him, but they're just friends. You know what I mean? It's one of those where like they're just friends, but these two are gonna get together eventually. And it's all about him and his relationship with Ron Howard as his son, and just the ups and downs in which that goes with, and just having to get in a relationship that your son doesn't approve of. So how do you interpret that? How do you go through that? How do you balance single parenthood with personal life? What's that kind of like? So it is dealing with a lot of things that are you still see in movies today and still see in real life today. And I've always been a big fan of Glenn Ford.
Yes,
Glenn Ford's a great actor.
he's amazing. And yeah, this is right around the time of the TV show that when Ron Howard was on the Andy Griffith Show. So probably.
Yes.
So you said, was it 60s? So yeah,
This is 1963, and I believe the Andy Griffith Show was a little bit before this,
I think uh,
um,
I think it was on. I think it started a little
or maybe
before
concurrently.
and ended later. Yeah. So yeah, so you go see that version of I guess they call him Opie Cunningham.
Oh yeah, because he of course was
Yeah.
later on Happy Days,
Yes.
when he was older.
Ah,
What is interesting is if you look at Ron Howard's filmography, it goes back to the time where he was not infancy, but pretty close to infancy.
I'm
He's
pretty
been in
sure
Hollywood how
I'm pretty
long?
sure they filmed him being born. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it's like a Truman Show situation
it
going on
might
there.
yeah, it might have happened. Yeah.
Might not have been the
Very
best
much so.
direction when he was born. I'm kidding, kidding. But who
Yeah.
would have
So,
known that he would direct a Star Wars movie, decades later?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah. By
yes,
accident, kind of. He
yeah,
Yeah,
the
wasn't
Andy
yeah.
Griffith
supposed to direct
Show.
it.
Yeah, the Andy Griffith Show is where I first discovered Ron Howard. And then, of course, Happy Days was a big thing for me. But the Andy Griffith Show did air from 1960 to 1968, so it was concurrent with his life. It was interesting is that Ron Howard did kind of go from TV to movies, then back and forth, which
Mhm.
was something that is more of a modern thing, really. Usually movie actors were movie actors and TV actors were TV actors. For the most part, they stayed separate for a while. It was two kind of bigger separate industries, and now there's more free flow in between the two these days.
And the budgets got bigger on TV.
That's
So
also very
Exactly.
true.
Yeah.
that's why.
Ron Howard on the next White Lotus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, Stephen, where do we head towards now?
I think we're to our the a big box set slate, and we had a
Ooh,
remember like a month ago we had that big box set week where it was like Severin had like a bunch of like two box sets, Indicator had like two box sets, like we had, but this one Via Visions just got three box sets all in one week, so
all in one release slate,
all in one release slate. We got
just in
three.
case if you didn't have the shelf space already. It's
Yeah,
gone
they're
now.
calling it. I think they called it like Hardbox July is what they're calling it. Like it has a name. Like they purposely put all three of these out at the same time because they wanted to be like, let's do like just an all hard box,
And they're
month.
all relatively distinctly different too. It's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
diversity in here in terms of like who we're covering, where we're covering, movies we're covering. But yeah, let's get into it.
yeah. We got two director centric box
Yeah,
sets,
one
and
we already knew.
yeah,
One
one.
was announced last July. And we've just been waiting to see when this thing was going to come out.
Yeah, and that's the Walter Hill box set that includes films Hard Times from '75, The Driver from '78, The Long Riders from 1980, Extreme Prejudice from '87, Johnny Handsome from '89, and Broken Trail from 2006. So let's briefly go over this set first before we get into the other ones. And I know Aaron, you wanted to bring up a friend of your show. Did some work on one of these releases.
Oh yeah, yeah, not just friend of the show, but just a friend. So I was very
Yeah,
pleased to see that Matthew is doing Matthew Aspergier is doing a commentary for The Driver. And if you haven't seen The Driver, in fact, I'm glad that this episode had a mention of Ronin and The Driver because I think they're both good examples of driving movies. Of course, in 1978, I think it was probably not as much technology, but really, when I think of Walter Hill, I kind of think of like masculine movies, and I think this definitely qualifies. And yeah, and Matthew gives great commentary. I think he's this is his third or fourth. He really gets into like the minutia behind like how people got to certain roles, actors, the writers, crew. But he also talks a lot about the movies as well. And with the driver, it's a very exciting movie. So yeah, no, I this is the highlight of the month for me, or of the slate. I know we already have the Warriors as standalones, so I think this is
Yeah.
probably all the hill we're gonna get. All the hill we're gonna get.
Yeah.
All the hill, running up that hill.
Right up the
Uh,
hill, yeah.
it,
I don't know. We still haven't gotten. I brought it up when we talked about this last time. I'm still waiting for that Bruce Willis movie he did from the '90s to get its own release. I always forget the name of the fucking movie,
oh
but
my goodness, you do
it's
always forget it.
essentially yeah, I do. I always forget the name of the damn movie. But it's like based on a Kurosawa film. It's like one of his films. It's kind of based around that movie, and I'm just blanking on it.
Streets of
Um,
That's
Fire?
why. That's why.
No.
No, that's not it. It's Bruce Willis from
Is
the
it? Is
'90s.
it Mercury Rising?
No,
Nope,
that's
that's
not
it.
it. You're getting close there with the time period
I am
though.
getting close. That was 1998. You do have to go through a lot of.
It's a western.
Oh,
It's a
see
western.
that does help.
Last Man
That actually,
Standing.
Last Man Standing. That's
Yeah.
it.
I
nice.
if I
And
remember,
it's a Walter Hill, and it's supposed to be based around a Kurosawa film, and I'm blanking on which one it is, but
Oh,
Yojimbo.
it's based. Yeah, it's based off
Yo Jim,
Yojimbo.
there you go. That's it. Yeah. So I've been waiting for that to get a good upgrade, and I'm hoping because where Bruce Willis is right now, we
Right.
start to see some of his. He's got a few films. Bruce Willis. I know I'm going on a tangent right here.
Do it.
He's got a few films I'd like to see an upgrade, like Bandits. Needs a good
Oh wow.
good
Mhm.
Blu-ray. That's one I like of his with Billy Bob Thornton. He's got some movie. You said Mercury Rising. That's has what's his name? Haley Joel Osment in it. Early role of his along. Around the time Sixth Sense. Right. I think that's actually before Sixth Sense
It is.
came out. So, yeah. But back on Walter Hills before I
Yeah.
get too
Get
crazy.
back on track.
Yeah, it's when we talked about this initially, I think we I don't know how many. I don't remember how many of these you saw, but I know I've seen the Long Riders. I believe a kino of that,
Well,
and it's
lucky for you, I did go. I did go
you
back
did go back
and
in.
watched all the ones I didn't get to see.
Okay,
Um,
and well, Broken Trail. Did you watch Broken Trail?
the thing is, Broken Trail
It's like a mini series.
is a mini series. It's a
Yeah.
2-part mini series that aired on AMC in 2008, and this was right around the time where AMC was starting to do their original programming. Of course, they switched from kind of being just like a Turner Classic movie, with just playing like old American movie classics. At least that's what I grew up knowing that what AMC stood for. And then they made the transition into being more of a extended basic cable network and making their own content, starting off with like Mad Men, Breaking Bad. Of course, The Walking Dead would launch them into the stratosphere of popularity and money and riches and all that stuff. But they did this. They did this Western miniseries. I didn't get a chance to see it. Coincidentally, it's not really streaming. I don't even think it's streaming on the AMC like streaming service or anything. I know it did.
I think I rented it when I watched it. Yeah,
Oh, you did. Okay.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Did I say 2008? I think it was 2006.
Mm-hmm.
That this
2006. Yeah.
Yeah, 2006. I think 2008 was when it came out on Blu-ray. That's what I'm remembering because it does have a US Blu-ray release here, I think done by Sony. And I remember seeing that when it came out on shelves in stores. For me, The Driver was significant because The Driver's actually is a 4K UHD disc in here. And
Mm-hmm.
originally, I believe it was only supposed to be a Blu-ray. And what happened is, I think Studio Canal was going to release The Driver in 4K, and I think that set in motion them delaying this box set a bit to kind of maybe do that. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you look down here in the fine print, it says do 4K restoration by Studio Canal. So maybe
Hmm.
that's a bit of a giveaway of that.
I know. I remember there being a 4K release put out. I don't remember. I didn't think it was Studio Canal that put it out there. I thought it was maybe like 88 Films
Oh, I
or
think it's
somebody.
Studio Canal. I can
Was it
tell
Studio
you
Canal?
right now it is Studio Canal. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
it came out in December of last year.
Okay. So it
Um,
wasn't even that long ago.
no, it wasn't even that long ago at all. But you're getting the 4K disc here, so you're not necessarily missing out of the 4K quality if you get this release.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a nice bonus. It's the only 4K release in this entire set. Uh,
I don't think, and there isn't really. I don't think. I think they only have one other 4K release in general, and that's the War of the
I was
Worlds.
oh
wondering about
yeah,
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also 1,500 copies. I had mentioned earlier this show that I had sold some of my boxes, and I'm not saying to buy this if you don't want to watch the movies, and just to sell it later. In fact, I kind of don't like that sort of thing, but these really do hold their value, and I'm sure this will sell out. And I think I sold the collaborations for like $500. So
I
Wow.
remember when you posted you were selling that. Um, because that set sold very quickly.
yeah,
And it was during the pandemic too. I remember there was a lot of delays of it just sitting at the airport in Australia,
yes,
of just waiting to get out to people. Yeah, the 1,500 copies thing always surprises me right now because Imprint has gained incredible popularity over the last 3 years to the point where um 1,500 is a small amount to sell. Like these things sell out all of the time,
I mean,
every
shoot,
couple of days.
there's some Vinegar Syndrome titles that I'm like they get like 6,000 copies, and I'm like, how in the fuck did they gonna sell through 6,000 copies
They're
of
not going. I don't think
this
that's
movie?
gonna happen.
You know, like
Yeah, I don't think this is gonna happen.
I
But something like this will sell because I know people have been anticipating it since the last July. So I can only
yeah.
imagine what these pre-orders are like right now. But the driver has been available before. I have the driver on Blu-ray from Twilight Time
mhm.
that they put out years ago. I've been recommending this movie for years. If you like the movie Drive by Nicholas Winding Refn, he took pretty much the concept from this movie and made it his own. That's kind of it. Movie, of course, starring Bruce Dern, but you've got other films in here that are uniquely Walter Hill. Like Aaron was saying, he does have a very masculine feel to his films, and I'm not saying that in terms of gender. I'm saying that in terms of just tone
Yeah.
and aggression.
Yeah.
The Hard Times
Same
is
can
Charles Bronson as a boxer.
Mhm.
You know,
yeah.
It's a
Yeah, same can be said. A lot of filmmakers have that. I mean, like same can be said about Michael Mann. Michael Mann's very
mhm.
similar, very masculine filmmaker. It has this sense of wanting to make things as cool as possible.
Or you could say
You
Peckinpah
know,
even, like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
and
Peckinpah.
it's not like, it's more like genre driven, it's targeted
Yeah,
towards masculine towards men. Probably not a lot of date nights went to The Driver in 1978, but
No, and even like Long Riders is about the um, Jesse James and Younger Gang from the late 19th century. Yeah, very male centric films, and of course, those old Western stories were sold to little little boys and stuff as like the great adventures of being an outlaw in the old west and things like that. That film is interesting because not only does it tell the story of kind of Jesse James and the younger gang from their perspective and kind of sentimentalizes it a bit, but the cast of that film is fascinating. Keith Carradine, Robert Carradine, James Raymar, Dennis Quaid, Stacy Keach. um, you've got an interesting cast of film of actors in there, and this film came out in 1981. So this was like kind of before um, a lot of those actors you will become more famous, specifically like Dennis Quaid and even James Raymar, who I believe was in the Warriors as well. So that's the kind of the Walter
mhm.
Hill connection there. This is a 2 disc set with tons of interviews, like from like everybody who was in it, including the director, which is kind of cool. So I like that. Extreme Prejudice um, stars Nick Nolte and Powers Booth, and just two guys who are just power on screen essentially.
yeah,
Michael Ironside's in there as well, just to add some more adrenaline to the movie.
yeah. Yeah, and I believe that film's gotten a Vestron release.
Yes, from Lionsgate.
Yeah.
So people probably already have that, but this has 2 new commentaries in it. Came out in 1987. Good year. Good year.
Ah, Jesus.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Um, and then we were talking a little bit about Mickey Rourke earlier, but thank you for that. Um, uh, he's in Johnny Handsome, a movie that is an interesting kind of crime caper from 1989. And Steven dropped the ball on that one. I was
No,
giving him that
I'm not.
open
I'm not.
window.
I'm not gonna do what you do, which is
Well, thing is,
every
I
time.
took one, and I thought I was going to give you one, and you didn't
Oh,
take it.
no, I didn't want to. I did. I want to talk about the movies. I don't want to
Okay.
talk about my birthday. No, I'm just kidding. It
But I
is a
can say
big
this:
year,
it's
guys.
it's Mickey Rourke, with but it's kind of an Elephant Man type of movie.
Yeah,
Johnny Handsome is a nickname that's one of those opposite nicknames. So Mickey Rourke plays this kind of deformed, like bank robber, or he's part of a crew that's bank robbing people, and he gets double crossed, and he ends up going to prison for it, and he ends up um, getting reconstructive surgery. And then once he gets out on parole, he wants to take vengeance and kind of go back to his old ways of, uh, crime and stuff like that to get revenge on the people who screwed him over. And it's one of those movies where it's like you had a way out, but it pulls you back in. Sometimes you don't go down that road. Bad things tend to happen. Morgan Freeman is in this film. Forrest Whitaker's in this film. Ellen Parkin is in this film. Um, yeah, once again, tons of special features, 2 new audio commentaries. I would have liked to have seen an interview with Mickey Rourke, but I don't know if he was interested.
Maybe not. But
Maybe not.
what a set, right?
What
yeah,
a set! And on top of it, you do get the Broken Trail miniseries, which is, I think it's like 186 minutes long. So it's like a three
yeah.
hour
It's
or
long.
something
It's long.
miniseries.
And I've heard great things about it. It's one of those that I've
It's good.
wanted to get around to. So I'm glad it's coming from a boutique label rather than some streaming service. But yeah, no, what a set.
And that's only one set.
It's
That's
only
only
one
one
set.
set.
Yeah.
There's two more of these. What's the next one is the directed by Sidney J. Fury set. And see, and I know
Yeah,
you got to watch a couple of these, and I got to watch a couple of these as well.
yeah. This is the one that kind of enticed me the most. I'm all. I mean, I of course I like. I mean, I just like director oriented sets in general, but I had never really. I've heard of the name Sidney Fury before, but like I never really looked into his stuff. And then I started going through looking at these films, and why I did, like you said, watched a couple. And I'm really fascinated by his work. I like his style. I like his his the characters in his films seem to have kind of this like laid backness to them. Like the films I watched. I watched The Lawyer, and I watched Little Foss and Big Halsey. Um, I almost watched Hit, but I didn't have time. But um, the films I watched all seemed to have really good character work in them. The Lawyer, spawned kind of a the movie spawned a lot more stuff to it. It ended up having a TV show and I believe a TV movie after this. So he, kind of essentially created a franchise starting with this movie about like a Harvard lawyer going to a very small town, kind of the opposite of what you see a lot lately, which is usually some small town guy going to the big city seems to be like the storyline we like to tell a lot more nowadays. Stuff I think of something like Justified, where you got, he went, well, that's not his character. He's going back to his small town, but he essentially leaves the small town to go to the big city and then gets brought back to the small town in that show. But like here you have a Harvard lawyer going to a small town and gets wrapped up in a murder case where a doctor is accused of murdering his wife. And it's pretty well constructed. I think it kind of keeps you guessing about how it goes down until the end, and then I mean it's pretty solid. What'd you think of The Lawyer?
Oh yeah, I do think it was a kind of a solid courtroom drama. Um, I'm actually really lucky. Not lucky. I'm looking forward to this having just better quality in terms of the quality that we're watching, because the version I watched wasn't the best looking version of the film. And yeah, and it has a very enigmatic, very interesting title character, and Tony Petrocelli, portrayed by Barry Newman, who was in Vanishing Point and Fear is the Key, which I think has another Imprint release. Um, And he also, you were just mentioning, apparently he reprised his role in the TV series,
Yeah.
which is rather fascinating. But it goes through the kind of like the twists and turns that you see in kind of a murder mystery. Like, did the person really do it? Did he not really do it? What's interesting is that he's a defense lawyer, so he's like defending somebody accused of murder, which is an interesting kind of turn on things as well, as opposed to going after the bad guy. He's kind of defending a possible bad guy, and you kind of discover information about the defendant and whatnot. I thought it was actually, yeah, rather good. I liked it. I liked it. And this is getting, like, this is release is getting a bunch of new features as well. Um, yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you, Steven.
Yeah, and then like I said, also Little Foss and Big Halsey, which stars
R- Robert Redford,
Rob, Robert Redford and also the late
Michael J. Pollard.
yeah, which once again I bring another Scrooged reference. He was also in Scrooged as
He
well.
was.
Is the homeless man. But he's always he's a guy you see him and you immediately like you're like I've seen him. Like he's a character actor that every time you see him, you know him. He's got that voice, he's got that smile on his face that you can always notice. But it's it's a film that um you know it's kind of got this like buddy friendship kind of thing going for it. Where it's all this particular director, which I need to watch the film because I got the film from one of the partner labels, but uh, Sidney Fury did a film before all these films called The Leather Boys,
Oh,
which is a film put out by one of the partner labels at Vinegar Syndrome. I got, and I need to watch it, but it's also about motorcycling gang of people.
wasn't that Canadian International Pictures?
It might have been
Pretty sure
Canadian.
they put that out. That movie had Donald Pleasance in it. I
Yeah,
tried to find that movie to watch it when we were talking about it for the show. Couldn't
yeah,
find a trace of it to watch it.
yeah.
So the only way you could really see it is through that release,
It's yeah,
which happens a lot with those titles from Vinegar Syndrome and their partner labels. Uh, but yeah, what you're saying is this movie is like about motorcycle racing, but it's more about the relationship between Robert Redford's character and Michael J. Pollard's character.
yeah.
And Robert Redford is all charisma in this movie, where he's just kind of,
His shirt's
and his
off most of
shirt
the
is
movie.
off the whole time.
Yeah,
He's just walking around in the sun with shirtless and drinking beer and just
yeah,
charming women and just being kind of playing up that machismo of Robert Redford in the 70s, I guess.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is post Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but pre The Sting and other films. But yeah, this is Robert Redford, and I mean, he's still doing stuff. I think he's retired now, if memory serves. But
Yeah, yeah.
this was him in prime Robert Redford. He's just kind of fantastic in this film. And the film, like you said, is kind of a bit of a laid back film. It's not plot heavy. It's more relationship based, and it's more of Robert Redford kind of taking advantage of anyone he possibly can to motorcycle race. And the thing is, he's not really even that good at it, but he thinks he's great at it. And Robert Redford can play that very, very well. Can play that just absurd ego in this film. I did end up liking it as well. I ended up watching.
I think
Yeah,
it's a little underrated.
you
Like
know
it's
what's
like I
crazy?
don't
I
think.
think at the time it was a huge flop for him. Like
Yeah,
it's one of the films that is just not one of his most popular films that was
yeah,
ever done in his career. So that's kind of understandable.
yeah. And Michael J. Pollard, he plays a character that's kind of like really shy, very could he might even be on the spectrum. Who knows?
But this was
Uh,
before, and this is before anyone really
understood that.
understood, and we're still learning a lot of those things today as time
Yeah.
goes on. But
But he essentially wants to be the Redford character. He wants
hmm,
to have that confidence, wants to be, and he can actually race, and he actually knows something about motorcycles
like
that
he's like a mechanic. Yeah.
he's a mechanic. Like he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't have the confidence to be good. And then so he gains. They both gain something from each other, and I think that's what I like about the movie is that they both learn from each other. There comes a point in the movie where they go their separate ways, but then in the time that they're apart, they both gain something from each other. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. Like Pollard's character gains the confidence, but he also gains some of the bad influence
Yeah.
from Redford's character, which is the not caring about hurting people. or not care. He uses people, especially women.
I'll actually want to
And
get Aaron's thought. What do you think of Robert Redford, Aaron?
What do I think of Robert Redford? I think he's didn't expect
What a
that one. No.
question.
I think he is a really solid actor, and really, I think of the what was the skiing film he's in, Downhill Racer. He can play these guys that have this sort of hobby. So when you were talking about the motorcycle, that kind of resonated. I think he's a great actor, but I think he's done a lot for independent film, which I know is not
oh yeah,
not
yeah.
the topic here, but he's also very charismatic in his own little way. So this guy, I'm blank slate. In fact, I just looking at his filmography. I think the only thing I've seen is Superman 4: Quest for Peace. Probably
Yeah,
not during
I
his
was gonna
his
say,
He
yeah,
auteur.
did direct that movie. Yeah,
yeah,
not the best one. He also directed the Ipcris File with Michael Caine,
yeah.
which started off that whole Harry Palmer
All right.
series of films. And I think the Ipcris File, those movies were
It
also
got
got
an
an
imprint set.
imprint release. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Harry Palmer collection.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah. What's crazy is
and
he directed from 57 to 2018. That's a
wow,
long,
yeah.
long time.
that's a long career.
Mhm.
It's interesting. Yeah, the Ipcris File and all those films. Um, we talked about when it came out, but it's like the Michael Caine Harry Palmer character was meant to be like the anti James Bond, which you don't really hear about. Like that's how they tried to sell that to people. I just thought that that's kind of an interesting thing.
They got a sexy Michael Caine to play the non
I
James Bond.
guess like
At the
that
time, he
was,
was a
but it just
what?
his demeanor and the tone of the film and all of that was supposed to be different than
Yeah.
James Bond. If
Wait,
like counter programming, but it's like James
it kind
Bond is
of
like the biggest thing and when
it's
it comes
kind
to
of like
espionage movies.
what's the film? What's the film with all the damn big actors in it that came out not too long ago? The espionage movie with like Gary Oldman and like
Tinker Tailor
um
Soldier Spy.
yeah,
Mm,
it's like
that's
the
the one.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy version of James Bond. Like
Mhm.
more talking, less bang bang.
Ironically, I'm pretty
You
sure
know,
they did an adaptation of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy back in the 70s when they were
yeah.
making, the Bond movies with um oh my goodness, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I remember it too, but that was based on the Le Carre book.
Yeah, well, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Richard something, I forget.
Oh yeah, I know they put it on Blu-ray a few years ago. Um, but yeah, it is kind of the John le Carré novels are kind of like not the hardcore, but it's more like the Cold War thriller is different than a spy thriller a la James Bond. The Fleming books and stuff like that. Just a different vibe, a different tone. And yeah, I understand. Yeah, and the Bond movies that were coming out in the 70s with Roger Moore. Um, that's who I was trying to get off the top of my head. But yeah, yes, and he also directed, I think, The Entity, which is the 1980s horror film. I'm pretty sure he also directed that as well. Um, with Barbara Hershey and yeah,
And
yeah, I was right.
you can kind of tell that he's a studio director that he was a kind of hired hand. So I'm interesting. They call him an auteur the way they introduced this set. So I'm interested to hear about his auteur period in his own style. But yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a BAFTA award winner, Palme d'Or nominee. Um, so there was some critical clout to him and his career. So
Yeah, and it's an eclectic set, like of different types of films. Like,
yeah, and
um,
I watched Hit. I watched that last
I
night.
I, I wanted to watch it because it sounded amazing. Um,
It's an interesting concept. Billy D. Williams leads a small group of people to take down the heroin syndicate in Marseille, France. And it's about as interesting as you would expect it to be. One of the people he recruits to his little band of Inglorious Bastards band here is Richard Pryor. So he's part of the group. It's it's an interesting movie um, because it's filled with like action and and things like that, but it's incredibly long. Not incredibly long, it felt long. The movie clocks in at about 2 hours and 15 minutes, and for me, I was like, "This movie could be so much better if it was just a much shorter, much tighter, much more focused film, because there's just a lot of dead air in the film. Not dead air, but just a lot of extra stuff that I don't really think served the plot too well. Yeah, so he plays a federal agent whose daughter dies of a heroin overdose, and he decides to not just go after the people who sold the drugs here, like street level people. No, he wants to go straight to the source, straight to the head honchos who happen to be located in Marseille, France. And he puts together a band of people off book. Even his superiors say, we're not helping you out with this, so you got to go do it on your own. We're not here. We didn't hear this. And he does that. And the movie is kind of also about like, you know, if if certain government institutions wanted to do stuff, they could do stuff, but there's probably ulterior motives as to why they're not doing things or doing things as effectively. That's one kind of a big line in this. But I would love seeing Billy D. Williams, headlining and leading a film and being at the forefront of it, and all of these kind of different cast of characters that he pulls together are all interesting, all unique. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I dug it from what I was watching, but like I said, a little too long. But the other films in this set are Sheila Levine is Dead and Living in New York from 1975, and then the last film is The Boys and Company C from 1978. Um, and I know neither of us got to see it. I really want to see Sheila Levine is Dead and Living in New York. This seemed like an incredibly contemporary, interesting film. It's about a sheltered young woman who tries to make it in New York City and finds herself falling for a man who's not interested in a relationship. So it's one of those character, relationship based things. It reminds me a lot of, oh, Aaron will know this. What's the Criterion film that just came out that's similar to this?
That just came out.
Not just came out. I within the last year or two. I have it on my shelf, and
Hmm.
oh man, it's gonna bother me.
You sound like me trying to think
I
of a
know, I
movie.
know,
It's
I know.
very
Because I
vague.
don't know this one very well. Oh, let's see.
Yeah, it's actually, I believe, set in either the 70s or 80s, and it came out within the last couple of years. That doesn't help.
Yeah, it
Um,
doesn't help at
That's a
all.
that's a long list. So.
it's a long
Jeez.
list. You know what? I'll look it up while Steven
What?
does something.
Da 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 da
Da, da,
da.
da, da, da,
Okay.
da, da, da.
Well, I'm gonna move on to the Gene Hackman set then, because I don't
Yes,
have
please.
anything else to say about that other than that it's really interesting to me. I hope to get it because I like I said, I'm a big fan of director centric sets, and so, but I do like a good actor centric set as well. So we're gonna move to that, and it looks like Imprint's got a new line. I guess they're gonna call it Film Focus, and then and I guess they're gonna maybe do some more of these sets. But the first actor centric set we got here is Gene Hackman, which of course an all time great. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but he's been popping up in the news lately because like they've like finally got a picture of him after many years. He's like 90 years old now,
Yeah,
and
he's retired and living in, I think, New Mexico, and
yeah,
they saw a picture of him, I think, a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic. It was his birthday the other day, coincidentally. I think he's in his mid to late 90s now, just
yeah, he's up there.
hanging out in New Mexico, retired. He hasn't done a movie in a very long time. Yeah, I think I told Steven this, was it last episode or episode before this? His last movie was Welcome to Mooseport with Ray Romano. That
Yeah.
was his last movie.
Why do you keep let's just I mean, I know the movie's out there, but we don't have to keep bringing up the
Well,
films.
I
I'm sure
mean,
Gene Hackman doesn't appreciate you
oh,
bringing up
I'm pretty sure.
that film.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
But this set's got 4 films from him. And I've seen one of them, but I believe Andrews has been able to see a few other ones. But the films in the set are I Never Sing to My Father from 1970, Bite the Bullet from 1975, The Domino Principle from 1977, and March or Die from 1977. So, um, yeah, I can speak to March till March or Die. Um, it has been a minute since I've watched it, but I do remember really thinking it was pretty solid. It has a really great battle scene at the end, where they're kind of surrounded by soldiers in
Oh,
this kind of dune.
I did
Um,
find I did find the movie that I was looking for.
okay,
It's called Girlfriends, and it was the Claudia Claudia Wells film, the Claudia Well film.
yeah,
And it's similar, kind of like the young woman moving to New York and having to deal with life and stuff like that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, you're right about um, yeah, you did get to see this film. I think because
It
was
was.
it was
I want to
announced by
say it was a.
someone.
It was announced by somebody. I want to. I always want to say Kino because Kino announces like 20,000 things a day, but so that's why I think it was maybe Kino announced it or I don't know, but yeah, March or Die. I remember thinking was pretty solid. And but these other films you'll have to help me go through.
I will.
Aaron,
I will. Also, the March or Die was Shout Factory, and
Shout
Aaron, I
Factory.
did
Okay,
find it. It was Girlfriends by Claudia Whale. That was the movie I was thinking of. Young woman moving to New York and trying to like live her life and figure things out. And I
That's a
like
great.
that. This movie kind of reminded me of that. Um, but we have moved on to Gene Hackman, and I did see I Never Sank for My Father. This movie is really really good. Um,
I wanted to watch this one.
yeah, I
Yeah,
Never Sank for My Father, starring, of course, Gene Hackman, but also starring Melvin Douglas, who was probably one of my favorite actors of all time. Yet again, from that classic Hollywood era, and Melvin Douglas is incredible in this film, as well as Gene Hackman. And this movie is about the relationship between a father and son. The father being Melvin Douglas, the son being Gene Hackman, and Gene Hackman is his father is a unique individual who's kind of oppressive and who kind of treats his son as if he's still like a young kid. He doesn't really take him seriously. He doesn't quite treat him as an adult as Gene Hackman would want to be treated. And it's one of those kind of contentious relationships where also Gene Hackman feels like he's beholden to help his father, even though they have this kind of contentious relationship that has a lot of backstory to it that I won't get into because I want people to kind of discover it on their own. And the film is rather subtle in that, abusive relationships and stuff like that. And he feels like he has a responsibility to take care of his father and put his own life aside to do so, and he's battling with that. He's also a widower who's looking to move on with his life, and finally he's in a relationship and he wants to get married, he wants to move away and live his own life, but he feels beholden to his father, portrayed by Melvin Douglas. And they just have great scenes together of the back and forth and things like that. Chemistry is off the charts in this film. Um, I believe Melvin Douglas was nominated for an Oscar for this film, as well as Gene Hackman. And I believe Melvin Douglas lost the Oscar to George C. Scott in Patton. That's what he
Mhm.
lost it to.
Hmm.
And yeah, I thought this film was incredible. It's a really great film.
Aaron. I guess like the last one. Are you a Gene Hackman fan?
I am a big time Gene Hackman fan, and I have not seen. I never sang for my father, so that's been a. Um, it's worldwide first on Blu-ray,
Yeah,
so I'm really really excited to see that. And what's interesting is this this set. I mean, it's not his big films, of course. The Conversation, French Connection, we all know him. Uh, uh, Night Moves is another
I know
one.
that's one you really love. Yeah,
I love it, yeah. And the thing with Hackman, especially in like roles like The Conversation, and probably I Never Sang for My Father and others, is he? Well, first off, he's a pretty prickly personality, and I'm not saying that like um, just based on rumors. I mean, he's just very, very solid, quiet. He doesn't do any interviews. In fact, Matt wrote a book about night moves, and he couldn't get an interview with Hackman, but he really does take his acting and his craft seriously, and so that's why we have so many great Hackman performances from the '70s and later. So yeah, I don't have a lot to say about these four because I have right around. It almost feels like this is a game of Battleship, and Nobody Sunk My Battleship of films I've seen from Gene Hackman. So it's actually a great thing. So really
Yeah.
looking forward to this set.
Yeah, I've only seen the one film in the set, and yeah, I'm always wanting to fill the gaps when it's, a lot of times I'm focusing mostly on directors I want to fill my gaps with, but we forget sometimes there's some you know all-time great actors that you can you find your pathway that way to discover some really good films too. And sometimes even if the movie's not considered to be great,
Hmm.
a lead actor as great as Gene Hackman can sometimes make up for maybe what's lacking in story or an overall good film experience. And if you're a big enough fan of an actor, you tend to collect their stuff anyway. I know Andrew's all about that. He I think collects everything just because to complete the the set. He's
The
got to have
filmography.
all, yeah, the filmography of
Hmm.
that director or that actor. So I think Andrew might be really interested in this set. I think.
Well, yeah, Gene Hackman is an actor that I've never really not that I haven't delved into, but he's always been kind of around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From the time I was a young kid, he's always been recognizable. I mean, growing up watching him in Superman, he played Lex Luthor
Yeah.
Right.
in Superman 1 and 1. He is in 2 for a little bit, and he's in 4, actually. He's in Quest for Peace. He's not in Superman 3. They had to replace him with Richard
Our,
Pryor.
our, yeah. Our
All
connection,
right.
to the other box set.
Is Richard
Through
Pryor.
no, 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 no,
Superman.
Oh,
no, no,
Gene.
Superman
no, no.
4. Yeah.
Gene Hackman and the director.
Oh, yes, in
Yeah.
Quest for
Yeah,
Peace,
yeah,
which was a canon film. That's if people haven't seen the Canon documentary, amazing,
Mm.
amazing
yeah.
documentary about canon films, and just how they got their hands on Superman to make that movie for nothing. But yeah, Gene Hackman, he's been around for a really, really long time. Um, yeah, even in the '90s, Steven, you always mention that film that you love so much, the submarine film.
Oh, Crimson Tide.
Crimson
Yeah,
Tide.
Crimson Tide
Of course,
is.
I believe he, Enemy of the State. He's in that movie,
That's
which is
say that
may or may not be a sequel to the Conversation.
conversation. I always. It's gonna be a topic on something we do eventually. But I like coming up with connecting movies that are not technically sequels to each other, but in my head canon they are, and so
Spiritual sequels, right?
you could say spiritual sequels, but not even to any. To most people, they're not considered
Right.
sequels to each other. Like for instance, like we always people would say, Dazed and Confused, or Dazed and Confused, and Everybody Wants Some are
Hmm.
spiritual sequels to each
Well,
other.
I think
Uh, but
Linklater said that. Yeah,
well, he said
Yeah.
that, but what I'm saying is like Enemy of the State and The Conversation are two different. They're not even connected in any way. They're not filmmaker wise, except for the Gene Hackman
right.
and the subject matter being about government conspiracy or behind the scenes kind of things. Like that's the only connection I've just in my head canon like to make up connections like that. So because the character is very similar in that way from The Conversation, I always like to say that Enemy of the State's a sequel to The Conversation. Um,
So the Drive is a sequel to The Driver.
Yeah, could be.
there you go. There's
Could
another
be.
one.
Yeah.
Could be.
There's a lot. I have a few of them, but I'm not going to spoil them all now because I want to do a whole thing with it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what a favorite Gene Hackman movie is for me. It might be The Conversation. Um,
Yeah, I think that's got to be it. I mean, as far as
yeah,
performance, I think
it's
that's
got to be
it.
it. Yeah,
But the thing is, he was just knocking them out of the park during this period. And I love the idea of doing a box set with actor as auteur
yeah,
because there there are directors. He worked with a lot of great directors in these films in this period, but sometimes the actors bring a lot more than you'd expect.
yeah.
And Hackman was definitely one of those because he had a lot of clout, I guess, with with the studios.
Yeah,
So yeah,
there's certain actors that have big pull when we talk about today, like Tom Cruise is essentially making the whole. The pull of he's the producer, so he has a lot of say. Burt Lancaster, as you've talked about earlier, is an actor that was known for being pretty like hands on, like he wanted to be really involved in the
absolutely.
in the movie making as much as possible. And if somebody he wasn't up to par, he might, say
Remove them.
this guy sucks. Let's get him out of here. Let's get somebody to replace that person. Um,
That happened.
yeah, yeah. So, um, yeah, Gene Hackman's just he's kind of an icon, and I wish we could have gotten just a little bit more from him, but I think he got to a point where he was ready to get out of the business. I do like one of his later films. I know you like this one, Andrew, The Replacements.
Oh
The
yeah,
Replacement,
I
yeah,
I have the replacements
Replacement
on
Coach.
Blu-ray.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice little Keanu Reeves.
yeah, little Keanu Reeves team up there. That's a great cast in that movie. John
It's a nice
Favreau's
little
in
movie.
there.
Yeah, I
Um,
know he's not the lead in that movie, but he's still fun to watch in that movie.
he's good in it. He's very
Yeah,
good in it. I do want to, but as we're winding down here, I do want to point out one more film in this set, The Domino Principle, which
uh,
is directed by Stanley Kramer. Stanley Kramer making a political film, shocker. Stanley Kramer, of course, the director of Judgment at Nuremberg, Inherit the Wind, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, The Defiant Ones, on and on. This is one of his later films that he directed. I think it's not his last film; it may be his second to last film. Um, so don't quote me. Yeah, it's his second to last film. The last film he did was The Runner Stumbles 2 years later in 1979. But The Domino Principle sees Gene Hackman as kind of this ex-army this ex-military sniper person who is in prison, and he's let out of prison in order to do this job. And this job is kind of this political assassination of someone, and he is let out, and he is reunited with his ex-wife, and he's kind of waiting around for when this job is supposed to happen. But of course, he's got to play by the government's rules and stuff like that. He's got to play by their rules, and he's kind of a guy who really doesn't play by anybody's rules. That seems to be the case with this character. But I do want to mention that this film also stars Candice Bergen, and Richard Widmark is in this film as well. Once again, another old Hollywood connection. He plays kind of this main government official who's handling this secret operation to assassinate somebody. Eli Wallach is in this film as well. And yeah, I it was good, but it meandered a lot. Even though the movie's an hour and 40 minutes long, there was so much of this film of just like just uh, Gene Hackman just doing like stuff that didn't really pertain to the plot. And I was just like, when are we going to get into the meat of this plot, get into the flow of the plot? And it took forever to get there. But once we got to the climax of the film and things got into motion, it got significantly better. But it took a while to get there. So I wanted to make sure that people were aware of this film and that it was directed by Stanley Kramer. So if you're a Stanley Kramer fan, or if you've got the Stanley Kramer collection going on like I do, gonna need to get this movie.
yeah. Stanley Kramer just is like it's like how we make jokes about Michael Curtiz. He just seems to always show up. Like his films get released all the time. Like we're seeing tons of his stuff get put out. Because he was so prolific and he was, and really good. I think Stanley Kramer's got some really good stuff out there. But unless there's anything else, I think that will do it for this spine number of Chasing Labels.
Thanks for having me,
Anything else
guys.
on?
Yeah,
Of course, man. Yeah.
good times.
Yeah. Aaron, we appreciate you coming on. Please tell everybody anything they need to know about where they can find you and when we should expect Criterion now to maybe be making its way back on a regular basis.
Huh. Well, I don't want to make any promises yet, but
Yeah. Yeah.
we're going for soon.
Yeah.
But you can find us. We have a Facebook group that I think is transcends the show. Actually, I think it's better than the show. It's called Criterion Now. It has about 2,500 people, but it's a very very carefully curated group of people. I'm personally on Twitter at awest505. Uh, Letterboxed is DSNT. So I'm almost to my 7,000th film. I'll probably get there
Oh,
soon.
nice.
So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Yeah, but great time. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, man. Anytime, and whenever you get things popping up and running, we'll definitely let everybody know that the Criterion Now is back.
And you guys are
So,
due to come on my show, so
well, of course, man.
I think
Of course, man. We
now that I think
let's
about
do
it,
it.
I think episode 4 we did a duel thing. So yeah, it's ambitious, but maybe. So
All right.
thanks,
All right.
guys.
Maybe by then I'll have a new song for you. I'll just bring. I'll debut
don't-
my new. I debut my new Criterion song
I'll say,
on the
don't make
Criterion
promises
Now.
you can't keep, Steven.
Oh, I
Criterion
don't.
flash sale song. We need it, Steven. The people need
Well,
it.
if you tell me I'm not going to do something, Andrew, it's a good chance I'm going to try to
Nice.
make you look bad and by
See,
do
that's
by
called
doing so.
motivation, people. Motivation.
There's my motivation I was talking about for my co-host here.
Motivation / manipulation. I get it.
A little bit of both, yeah, a little bit of both.
It's all part of the
But
plan.
Andrew, it is. Andrew, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Kebzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it be our Twitter, Instagram. You can find me at my letterboxd at Stephen Billings. You can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.
Me too.